From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric. And as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics.
Hello, Ward.
Hello, Eric.
We have got a jam-packed show today. I mean, jam-packed. There's tons of stuff going on with IU basketball. Our guest today, we couldn't be more excited about having multiple guests, but it's just a special, optimistic time in the world of Hoosier fans out there at all levels. So that's what this show is about. I can't wait to get into it. But before we do that, as always, we are
powered by
CommunityCars.com, sponsor of the pod, Hoosier Hysterics. CommunityCars.com, Hoosier Legends talk with Ward and Eric. CommunityCars.com.
Community Cars Fade Out. Look, my lease on my car is coming up. It's coming up. And you know what?
I mean, that certainly you're at a disadvantage because part of your car is burned, right?
It's true. I did light my car on fire with my cigar lighter like a true idiot. But the great thing about this is you come out of a lease, you have to figure out if you're going to buy out the car, go into a new lease. What are you going to do? It's all kind of confusing and complicated. Not with Community Cars. They take care of me. I'm buying the car out through them. They're sending me the paperwork with the little tabs, with the arrows, with the signatures that I love. And they just make it so easy. They make everything easy. And I'm in Los Angeles, and it couldn't be an easier process. So whether you're in Bloomington, Southern Indiana, a neighboring state, or not a neighboring state, the continental U.S., still trying to find out about international, still trying.
I mean, you could drive to Alaska. I know it's not continental, but you could just cut through British Columbia and be there.
You're right. It's not contiguous, I guess you could say. Although from your car's standpoint, it would be contiguous.
It doesn't know where the borders are.
True. But whatever your scenario is, whether you want to buy it on phone, email, go into the store, whatever it is, they're going to make it as easy as possible for you. They're going to take care of you no matter what your budget parameters are. Community Cars, they're a partner of ours. They're a partner of Indiana University Athletics and have been for years. They're a pillar of the community, employing tons of people in Southern Indiana in the Bloomington area. You're going to pay for a car. You're going to give your money to somebody. So why not give it to people that have interests and passions that align with your own? That's what Community Cars is. That's what the Community Cars family is. So yeah, just don't be a jackass. Buy your car from Community Cars.
I'm sorry. I got distracted about halfway through your ad read because everybody's sending me these articles about the FBI raid in Bloomington this morning. Did you hear about this?
I did not.
Yes. There's suspicion of one or two employees, professors. I haven't actually read the article. I'm just seeing the headlines coming in, but they're suspecting a couple of spies on behalf of the Chinese government.
What?
Yes. I could.
Please tell me one of them is not Darren DeVries.
I don't think so. It's at least not in the headline. FBI raids on Chinese American scientists revives China initiative fears. FBI raids home of prominent computer scientist whose professor profile has disappeared from Indiana University. He's been missing for 2 weeks and his students can't reach him. So I don't want to be irresponsible about this.
Too late.
Too late, but apparently he was the associate dean for research at IU's Luddy School of Informatics, Computing and Engineering, and a fellow at the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Sorry, I'm going to stop reading what this article has on Reddit, but breaking news, not really the kind we're used to breaking here on the Hysterics, but people are sending it to me, I guess, because they know I love IU.
And also, let's be clear, we didn't break anything. We read breaking news. Well, and I also take exception to you saying earlier that I did an ad read for Community Cars. I've never done an ad read in my life.
You did an ad riff.
There we go.
An ad riff, which was excellent, by the way. And I did mean to ask you before I got distracted by all these text messages. Are you turning it in or are you buying it?
Buying it out. I'm going to drive this car into the ground. I love it. It's a Suburban. I just absolutely love it. I've burned the shit out of it, so I am going to drive it until I burn the whole thing to ashes. That's the goal. All right, so big show. Let's get it started.
Here comes our guest. Here comes our guest.
All right, but before we get to our primary guest and some surprises today, we got to cover everything that's going on with Indiana basketball because there is so much happening, so much optimism. It is so nice to be able to do this with an optimistic and hopeful approach as opposed to every other time we've had our guest on. So, Ward, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you do the intro because we're changing up the vibe of Indiana basketball. You do the intro for this guest.
Well, let's just say that this guy's reasonable. He's rational. He's ridiculous. Okay. I mean, when we think of this guy, we think of ridiculous. He's Rabbi. He's our favorite guest. He's our brother from another mother. I know you always lead it up to the guy's name, but I'm doing it my style.
Do it your way.
Because you didn't give me any prep and I'm really just winging it right now. Rabbi, when you came onto the Zoom, I'm so happy to see you. I'm always so happy to see you, but I'm really happy to see you in that this is not going to be a bitch and moan session. This is not going to be lamenting. This is not going to be like, why is our program such a disaster? We are in a whole new era of Indiana basketball, and nobody is closer to the action on the ground, on the scene, really both in Bloomington and around the state than you are. And I think so many of us have so many questions about what's going on behind the scenes with Coach Darren DeVries. And we're all still practicing on saying it out loud because we haven't said it that much and it's spelled weird, but his name's Darren DeVries. We're all pumped and we're all pumped for you to be here to talk to us about everything that's going on. Ta-da!
Time out. Just two things. I love you doing it your own way. I just think it would be good to say his actual name in the intro.
Jeff Rabjohns, DJ Jazzy, Jeff Rabjohns, Jeffrey, the reasonable one, the rabbi of recruiting, Jeff Rabjohns of Peaks.com, publisher of Peaks.com.
There we go.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And it's good to be talking about IU basketball and having a whole host of positive developments and things to discuss.
Well, let's start with the staff. Let's start at the top and let's start with coaching staff. Peaks.com broke the story earlier today, although we did kind of comment on it a couple days ago, just saying. But it's why you want to be on Peaks.com. But Rabbi, who is Indiana? We know for sure set to hire right now as probably at this point the most impactful assistant coach that's been named.
Yeah, they're set to hire Drew Adams. Bloomington native, guy who went to Bloomington South, the guy who was on Tom Crean's early staff, wasn't an assistant coach by title, but was a staffer. Really did a good job with priming the pump for Crean with a number of kids, certainly from the state of Indiana and from some other places. Was at New Mexico, did a really good job there, helped build NCAA tournament rosters there, went to Bradley, was part of a staff that took over a team that won 5 games, and within 3 years, they went to the NCAA tournament. He built a roster that went back-to-back NCAA tournaments at Bradley for the first time since the 1950s. Went to Cincinnati, helped to land nationally ranked players. Has connections to a ton of agents. He's been overseas. He's been to Europe. He has the chance to maybe open some potential pipelines there. At least he has the contacts to maybe get Indiana involved with international recruiting. He knows a ton of prep school coaches. He knows a ton of traditional high school coaches. He was a guy I was told that a number of people from various levels of basketball reached out to Darren DeVries and said, hey, you got 5 assistants. You're in Bloomington, Indiana. One of them has to be Drew Adams. He's the guy you have to hire. And they were able to get that done.
All right. Well, that's very exciting. Can you flesh out for us who else we know is on staff? We've seen some reports.
Wait, can we talk just a little bit more about Adams?
Sure.
Because, Rabbi, you've been pounding the Drew Adams drum for years. And I would just wanted to get a little bit of your personal insight, because the things you mentioned, there's probably 100 assistant coaches in the country that check all those boxes, except for the fact that he's a Bloomington native. That is exceptional. But from your vantage point over these many years as to why you think this is a good fit, you say you're talking to Coach DeVries, and he's like, Rabbi, why should I bring in this Drew Adams guy? Give me your take.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, obviously, I stay out of hiring decisions. That's not my purview, but on the board, I can give my opinion. And, I wouldn't say I know Drew personally all that well. I mean, he's been an assistant for a while, so we talk here and there. But one of the things that I do is follow people's career path, especially people from the state of Indiana. If you get into college coaching, pay attention to you, whether it's him, whether it's Dan Beret, whether, go on down the list. And I look at, okay, where did you go and what did you do? And you see him, early on, he was on Crean's early staff, and his connections in state, certainly helped prime the pump there. He goes to New Mexico. He's an assistant coach with Steve Alford, multiple NCAA tournament teams. He was a key recruiter with a number of really good players. And then, like I said, it goes to Bradley. They coming off a 5-win season. He really spearheaded the rebuilding of that entire roster. And then goes to Cincinnati and helps him, with Rayvon Griffith and players of that nature. So he's a guy I just sort of followed, one of a number of people who I've followed over time. Where did you go and what did you do? So really, to me, it's just kind of observing, did you recruit players who impacted a team winning at a good level, specifically getting to the NCAA tournament? The NCAA tournament can be a crapshoot. Upsets happen. We get it. But did you elevate the program to the point to where it's a regular NCAA tournament team? And especially what he did at Bradley. That program was bad. Okay, let's be honest. It was just bad. And they go to back-to-back NCAA tournaments for the first time since the 50s. That's a tremendous achievement. I mean, if you do something that hasn't been done at a school for half a century, that's a significant achievement. So those are the kinds of things that I look at when I look at assistant coaches. Where did you go? What did you do? How impactful were you, especially as a recruiter? Because job one for assistant coaches is open doors for the program to certain pipelines of talent. Sometimes assistants are the lead driver in you landing a player, but a lot of times the job of an assistant coach is open doors, get your head coach to walk through the tour, get your head coach an opportunity to sit down with people, talk to them, and sell his program. And I think Drew Adams has done a phenomenal job doing that at 3 different stops.
Great.
All right, so let's talk about who else. Nick Norton is a guy that we have heard about, came with Coach DeVries from West Virginia. What do we know about Nick and what his role on this staff as it shapes up to be?
Yeah, Nick Norton, he was obviously there with Darren DeVries on Saturday at the Indiana High School Basketball State Championships. And he is going to be one of the assistant coaches. Right now, I expect IU to have 5 assistant coaches. I expect all 5 of them to be certified to go out on the road to recruit. And obviously, if you have the assistant coach title, you can be on the court during practice coaching. So Nick Norton will be one of those guys. He's somebody DeVries has known for a while, a younger guy. But there was a lot of familiarity there. And DeVries felt like this is a young guy who understands what he's about, understands what DeVries wants to teach, understands how he's going to teach it, how he wants the program to run. So that's sort of why Nick Norton is with Darren DeVries.
All right. Well, then let's talk about the other spots. Look, I put out on Peegs a few times that there was definite interest in Preston Murphy from Alabama. I believe you've written on Peegs about, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, from Texas Tech, the assistant coach. I have no idea how to pronounce that gentleman's name. What do we know? Because as seasoned as Drew is still a younger assistant coach. Seems like there's still a role to be had with some heavy hitter assistant coaches. Any movement on either one of these guys? Anything that's worth talking about at this point?
I think they're clear targets. That's probably where I would leave it for the moment. But yeah, they're certainly pretty clear targets. And I talked to somebody earlier today who reiterated that. So I think those are 2 guys to keep an eye on. And yeah, No one assistant coach can do it by themselves. You want, it takes a group of assistant coaches. So, excuse me, as highly recommended as Drew Adams is, he's one guy. He's one guy. Nobody can do it by themselves. Preston Murphy's fantastic. That would be a tremendous addition. And Boyko, that's close, but I got to work on this. From Texas Tech, I talked to some people over the last 3-4 days about him. I heard very, very good things. So that's certainly a very interesting one. And now that Alabama and Texas Tech have concluded their NCAA tournament runs, now things can get a little more serious. So I think there's a good chance we find out some more this week. It's not definite, but I think there's a chance.
Hoosier Nation, never a group of folks to freak out about anything. But as far as not having announced a full staff, and this segues, of course, into being active and successful in the portal, give your perspective on the timeline here and how effective Coach DeVries has been able to be behind the scenes, not only in wrangling what will be his staff, but also lining up players. Obviously, we know there's some big visits going on right now. I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment, but just maybe you want to throw some water on the hysterical fires out there about people being concerned that we don't have a staff or any players currently on our roster.
Sure. Yeah, I understand the concern because people who just look at it casually, the drive-by kind of sense, they go, "Oh, there's 2 players on the roster, Thugger DeVries and Trent Sisley, who will be a freshman. Well, what's going on? How are we going to get a team? Wait a minute, we don't have a coaching staff. Oh my God!" People run to the "Oh my God, what's going on?" scenario very quickly. I don't know why my voice just went up like that, but anyway,
you're doing character work.
There you go. I understand it, but I don't have those concerns. Okay, and I didn't have them early because I had a pretty good idea that they were going to get a good staff. I'm not saying that the people who are primary targets are definitely coming, but I was given pretty good indications that he's going to have a good staff. Okay. And the things in the portal, they don't have to happen right away. You can look at last year, the year before, there were a lot of people who decided April 15th or after. Now, I understand with the House versus NCAA potential settlement on April 7th or expected settlement that there are some things that people want to have happen before April 7th. I understand that. But it's not mandatory that it happens, okay? You can still sign portal players well after April 7th. I don't think
the people that should want the deals done before April 7th are the agents.
Exactly.
Those are the people pushing as hard as possible because there is at least a chance that the big deals get impacted after April 7th. Mm-hmm. A chance. Like you said, doesn't mean it will happen, but there's a chance.
Sure. But overall, I was given some pretty good early indications that he's going to have a good staff. Okay. So, and I know that Drew Adams, Nick Norton, some other people have done a lot of work studying the portal, going through who are possibilities, and the process is well underway. The dead period starts here on April 3rd, runs the 3rd to the 10th. Dead period means no visits. Does not mean no phone calls, no Zooms, whatever. Communication's never going to stop. So you're going to have basically 3-4 days, yesterday, today, tomorrow, Wednesday, where a number of schools have kids on campus. Then it goes dead for a week. So really after April 10th is when a lot more stuff is going to start happening. As long as your staff's in place by then, you're in good position. Here's another reason I'm not all that concerned. I know Darren DeVries has been reaching out about people and to people. I'll give you a specific example. There's one player, I don't really think I can say his name just yet, but it's not a guarantee that IU is going to get. It's just I'm giving you an example of Darren DeVries, the work he's done, the level at which he's working. He called this one guy's trainer and just said, "Hey, your guy's in the portal. Tell me about him. Here's how I want to play. I got his numbers. I got his analytics." And he's reaching out to people of that level, somebody who is a trainer or a really good portal prospect. So when the head coach is really involved in the work, and has his list of, hey, who do I want to really start doing some research on? And when the head coach is that involved, calling the trainer of a player and saying, "I want to talk to you about him. Give me a good half hour. I want to go through some things. I want to find out about him." When he's calling AAU coaches who coached a player back in the day to find out, hey, is he a good player? Is he a good teammate? Did he listen to you? When a head coach is calling AU coaches and saying, hey, you played against so-and-so. Was he a good player? Was he hard to play against? Was he a knucklehead? Or what was he like? When you have a head coach that involved, I think that's a really calming thing to know. So to me, you put all those pieces together, that's why I'm not concerned yet. Now, I understand IU has to put together a team. I get it. But this is a process. It doesn't happen all in one day. It's not going to happen all in 1 week. But those kind of things give me considerable deal of calmness that I like the process. I like how it's organized. And I like the fact that there is significant head coaching involvement in the process, in the evaluation, getting information, doing the research on portal prospects.
Before we get into portal prospects, a pretty major news story broke. If you're an Indiana fan, I get it. If you're not an Indiana fan, this is not meaningful to you. But Tim Garl, the legendary trainer of Indiana University basketball, been there since the post undefeated team, but pre-81 championship team. Tim Garl, been there well over 45 years, I believe. Is not having his contract renewed, which is how it was, I believe, stated in the statement that went out, which was not a statement from Indiana. It was a statement from Tim Garl and I believe a lawyer / representative. This is sad. Anybody who's listened to our podcast and listened to our interviews with older players and even more recent players, anybody from the last 4 decades talks about Tim Garl as being just as big a piece of the Indiana University basketball program as anyone. I mean, it really is Bob Knight, and then right under him is Tim Garl, is who we hear. Close relationships with players across multiple generations. And we would be lying if we didn't say that this is not tied up in some way with the lawsuits that have been talked about with the Dr. Bomba stuff. And we're not getting into that. That's not what this is about. But it clearly, Tim Garl's name had been mentioned in one of the amended lawsuits. And it just doesn't seem like the send-off that a guy like Tim Garl should get because of how much he meant to Indiana and Indiana players. Hell, they did a big reveal a couple years ago when Archie was there and named the training room after him and put his name on it. Rabbi, help us understand, has Indiana said anything about this, or is it just coming from Tim Garl's side? And what can you give us on this?
Sure. Well, just a piece of clarity to start so people don't get confused. This is not the decision of a new head coach, okay? This is an institutional decision. That was made very clear to me. Indiana's not saying anything really at all right now. Even behind the scenes, they're just like, just go with the statement, okay? So this is an institutional decision. Exactly how much is tied into the Bumble lawsuits and those kinds of things, I don't know. And I, like you said, I'm not getting into that. I'm just not going to touch that right now. It is sad to me. That's the thing that jumps out the most. It's just sad. Timmy G, as everybody calls him, is an IU basketball institution. Like you said, the training room's named after him. I don't know a single player that I've talked to at any reasonable length or over time that doesn't have a dozen Timmy G stories about the affection that the player feels for Timmy G. So it is sad, and it's unfortunate. And, so I really don't have an opinion because I don't have enough information, hard information right now to really have an opinion, other than I can say I've enjoyed every conversation I've had with Timmy G, whether he's telling me a story from the Bob Knight days, whether we're just sitting there talking about, how much fun we had down in the Bahamas, or, different trips we've taken. We both enjoy travel, and, hey, it's a big blue ball we live on. It's fun to go out and see different places. I've thoroughly enjoyed every single time I've talked with Timmy G. But as far as, institutions and big decisions, and sometimes unfortunate things happen. But I do feel sad for Timmy G. And I feel sad for the people who know him a million times better than I do. I feel sad for Timmy G personally. And certainly with his history, it would have been ideal to have him get a wonderful send off, a moment, maybe it's senior night like Dr. Rink did, something of that nature. I do think it's good that the training room is named after him, so people forever will know his name and know his impact on IU basketball and on IU athletics, really. But yeah, I just feel sad, and I don't really have a hard opinion because there's so many things that I just don't have enough details right now to have a hard opinion.
Look, I've said this story multiple times about Timmy G. This is a guy who worked with Bob Knight and national championship teams and some of the greatest players that have ever come through Indiana, and treated the walk-on just like he treated the star, took care of everybody. And I can speak to that personally because when we did the fantasy camp and I shattered my asshole, Timmy G was there to ice me. And that is the truth. He just cared deeply about Indiana basketball and the brand. Rabbi, I do want to kind of pivot it because.
And let me throw one more thing before we go, if I may be rude and interrupt you. He treated everybody like that. Somebody put a note on the board about their kid, was an IU basketball camp and had banged his head and, does he have a concussion or not? Timmy G comes over and takes care of this kid.
Yeah.
A little kid in IU basketball camp, the same way he cared for, the IU basketball stars, the guys who wore the uniform, the guys who won national championships. Timmy G if you were there and needed Timmy G's help, he was there for you, whether he knew your name or not, whether you mattered or not. Now, I'm not saying people don't matter, but I'm saying whether you mattered to IU basketball winning, losing games or not. He was just, a real quality person in how he treated everybody.
I think the only silver lining here is that now Timmy G has plenty of time to play craps.
Yeah, that's true. He'll have plenty of times at the craps table. I did want to pivot it a little bit, but I do think it's part and parcel. To take a step back at what's happening with Indiana University basketball right now. Mike Woodson is a legend of Indiana basketball and had deep ties with really important people behind the scenes of Indiana basketball. And that era was ended. Dr. Rink has been around forever, another just legendary guy in the world of Indiana. He retires. Timmy G, a legend, his contract is not renewed. It does seem, and Rabbi, you have said this on the boards a few times and maybe in some articles about this quote unquote hard reset that Indiana is hitting, and or at least is on the table. All of the players, with the exception of Luke Goody, who's trying to get a fifth year, are in the transfer portal, and there's no real talk of any of them being brought back or even attempted to being brought back. It does seem like this hard reset that you've talked about is happening not just with the players, but with the program. Is that what we're seeing right now? Darren DeVries, no attachment to Indiana, no attachment to the history of Indiana. His director of basketball operations is his guy. He's bringing in, I should say, a new trainer. We didn't talk about that, but Cliff Marshall not being renewed, and his trainer from strength and conditioning coach from West Virginia coming with him. Is that what we're seeing here, Rabbi?
Yeah. I mean, I was a little birdie whispered in my ear early on. I think it was in January where I mentioned in an inside the locker room that, hey, by the way, retirement for Mike Woodson before the season is something that's being contemplated. So don't be surprised if you hear that. And a couple of days later, a little birdie whispered in my ear and said, look, this might be about more than just a coaching change. This may be a hard reset of the IU basketball program, and you might see a lot of changes. And so I think that's, at this point, it's what we're seeing right now. The offices in Cook Hall have been cleaned out. Whether he rehires anybody or not, we will see, but offices have been cleaned out. So I think that's what we're looking at, the hard reset of the basketball program at Indiana University.
Okay, before we get into the potential new teammates,
Red meat.
you've now had a little while to take the temperature of people around the state, and not even just time to the initial news of the hire and the reaction of it, but now you have a new head coach from Indiana University who's already appeared at the high school state finals. He's appeared at the championship games. Talk to me about what you think the general feeling is from people who matter, and from the average Joe on the street, like Eric and I. What is the reception and the initial response to this hire and how he is going about his business in the opening weeks?
Sure. As far as like people in basketball, the reception has been overwhelmingly enthusiastic, not just positive. Talked to some prep school coaches, and they were all like, "We know DeVries. That's a legit dude. He's a legit basketball coach. He can come recruit our players anytime." I talked to high school coaches. They were thrilled. A number of them were even more thrilled that Drew Adams is going to be there. People I talked to with like the IHSAA, people with AAU programs, talked to somebody very influential in the Indiana Basketball Coaches Association, and he told me, DeVries has reached out to me. I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I didn't even know. I don't know the dude, but he's only been on the job a few days, and he reached out to me." And he said, "I don't think I ever talked to the other guy." Okay. So I think the reaction's been overwhelmingly positive. And I do think it's good that DeVries is working to reach out to people. I think that's a real positive. But, and even talking to some agents, they were like, "Yeah, he runs really good stuff. We'll have to have the right kind of players, in our agency for him to want them. But we like that guy. We like Indiana. We're absolutely happy to deal with him." So I think the general reaction from people in basketball, in the state, outside the state, has been very enthusiastic about the Darren DeVries hire. In fact, I know it has. I'm not giving you an opinion there. I'm passing along what people have told me who matter. So, and him being at the state finals was good. Yeah, maybe he's looking at a few players here and there. We'll see. But people were thrilled that the head coach of Indiana University actually would take the time to just at least minimum show up at the state finals.
All right, well, let's get into the really fun stuff, because I don't think I've been as excited for Indiana basketball, at least it's been several years. When I read the story on Peegs that you posted yesterday, I'm sorry, it will be now, when you posted it on Sunday, that Indiana's got some major visits happening this weekend in the portal. The first one of which is Ryan Conwell, who kind of exploded onto the scene of college basketball playing for Josh Schertz at Indiana State a couple years ago, brought them to the brink of the NCAA tournament, then went to Sean Miller's Xavier program, where he had a stellar year, and his production didn't drop off at all, going from mid-major MAC to the Big East, which I thought was really impressive. Like, points per game was the same, shooting percentage was basically the same. And Ryan Conwell, if I'm not mistaken, is he on campus right as we're recording this Monday?
Yeah.
So tell us about Ryan Conwell, and tell us about.
Do you have Jared live streaming, stalking him around campus?
No.
All right, so talk to us about Ryan Conwell.
Sure. Ryan Conwell, originally from Indianapolis Pike High School, a guy I really liked coming out of high school. Some high majors just didn't quite pull the trigger on pursuing him. Started off, goes down to South Florida, then Indiana State, then Xavier. 6'4", athletic, can create his own shot. Production's really good. Right at a little over 16 points per game, shot better than 40% from three. Darren DeVries wants players who can make threes, and ideally make threes and be able to do some other things, have the size, the strength, the shoulders to drive, those kind of things. So Ryan Conwell fits that bill. He's a really good player. And I think he would be a fantastic addition. He's ranked top 10 in the country among portal prospects right now. We'll see where his final ranking ends up. That aside, he's a guy who can go get you, 15, 16, 18, occasionally 20 points in a power
occasionally
basketball game.
30, like he did at the end of the year wasn't it the Big East tournament, where I think that he help Xavier, or was it in the play-in game? I can't remember. One of the games he just went
yeah.
off for like 30 plus.
Yeah, he definitely has the ability to go off, especially if teams don't guard him properly at the 3-point arc, or if they close out too hard. He's going to pump fake and go. But so he's one of the three guys who is visiting Indiana here before the dead period starts.
And he is looking at 3 schools by all reports: us, Louisville, and Texas. Obviously, his coach from last season, Sean Miller, now at Texas. Louisville, great first season under Kelsey. Neither of those schools are hurting for resources. How do you like our chances against these 2 big dogs?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fight to the finish. I think because Louisville's done a good job. Texas obviously has enormous financial resources, especially with what their football program generates, what they get from the Longhorn Network. So we'll see, but I think it's really good for Indiana that they were able to jump on him immediately and decide, hey, we're going to make him a priority and we're going to get him on campus really quickly. So I think Indiana did a good job giving themselves every chance here.
All right, next up, the guy that, I watched this guy a ton this year because of I watched more Big Ten basketball this year than I think I ever have before. Josh Dix at Iowa, a guy who's had 3 years of playing at Iowa under Fran McCaffrey, really came into his own this last year. Just seems like good length, can shoot the lights out. I think he's more athletic than people give him credit for. I think he just kind of gets lumped in with like, oh, he's one of these slow Iowa guys that just, plays in Fran's system. But this guy seems to be able to get his own shot, shoots it at a high clip, has good size, seems to have good bounce. And he's visiting starting what will be Monday night, I believe, into Tuesday. What do we need to know about Josh Dix, and what are our chances?
Yeah, he's another guy who has really good positional size and averages right around 15 points per game, and another guy who shot better than 40% from 3 for the year. Yes. So another guy you look at
Talk
and say,
slower.
okay.
Talk slower.
We need to just put like boom, boom during this whole thing. Okay.
Oh man. Okay, yeah, now I'm back. Talking with Darren DeVries, guys who can make shots is a priority. He wants shooting and he wants shooting depth. And Josh Dix is a guy who could go out there and be one of your lead dogs. So he's certainly another ideal type prospect. And, early on, agents thought he was going to go to Creighton. Exactly how deep that went, there's different stories, but several agents were like, it's done. He's going to Creighton. Some things with the Creighton situation changed, and then he was a little more open to some other people. And obviously, Darren DeVries, knows some people connected to Josh Dix, so they were able to get him on campus quickly. I think Indiana's got a good chance. It's not to say that it's definite. I wouldn't put in a crystal ball just yet, but I think Indiana's got a good chance with Josh Dix. And
there's a history there, right, with Darren DeVries and Josh Dix.
Yeah, there's a number of connections there that certainly helped Indiana get him on campus here in the early period before the dead period starts.
All right, I'm sorry, I just got to talk about if Indiana gets Ryan Conwell and Josh Dix with Tucker DeVries, that's 3 of, I believe, the top 10 or 11 ranked portal prospects, and I think the 3 best shooters. Rabbi, I guess the question is, how batshit crazy should we be going right now?
Well, they got to get him first, okay? They got to get him, but they're going after the right kind of guys who can help teams win games and the kind of players who can help teams win NCAA tournament games. You need shooting in today's game, outside of a couple teams who did it a little bit different ways. But to maximize your opportunities to win in the NCAA tournament, you need multiple guys who can make threes. You've got to be able to really scare a defense from multiple spots on the floor and with multiple players. So it would be a phenomenal addition. It would change IU's roster. It would be the best shooting they've had since going back to Crean's days when you had James Blackman and Robert Johnson and Yogi Ferrell, a little bit of Max Bielfeldt mixed in there, guys like that. But it would be we were coming up on the 2025-26 season, so it would probably, those three alone would be IU's best collection of shooters probably in a decade, something like that.
Yeah, don't forget Thomas Bryant on that team who could stretch it and shoot it a bit.
Maybe more than we wanted him to come his sophomore year.
You and I have had this argument over the years that your perception of Thomas Bryant shooting it's as off as my perception of his NBA chances were.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. But let's not digress on our beloved Indiana Pacer, Thomas Bryant.
Yes.
Because
we're not done. We're not done with the red meat.
Yeah, I know. That's what I wanted to get back to.
Okay, cool.
Let's jump over to Connor, right? And right?
Yes.
Because when we're starting to look what at least people we have a real chance with. Here we've got a bit of a smaller guy, more of a facilitator. Rabbi, what do you know of his game? What do you think of his chances and how he might potentially fit with all these shooters?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that jumps out when you talk about Connor Enright is his ability to run an offense and create things for others. His assist rate was 37.5, which ranked number 6 in the country among all players in Power 4 conferences.
What does that mean exactly, Rabbi? Does that mean that 37.5% of all the possessions where he touched the ball, he created an assist? Is that what that means?
No, it's more about possessions he's on the floor. When a basket's made, did he get an assist? Was he the guy who had the assist?
So 37.5% of all baskets made while he was on the court was because he assisted on them.
Correct.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a whole shit ton.
It's a ridiculous number. Any time you get over 30%, it's unbelievable. And he did it at DePaul on a team that didn't have a great offense. So it's not like he's getting what some people call gift assists, which means, oh, hey, you threw the ball to James Blackman Jr. He made a 3. It's really him doing the work, not you. You just happen to be the dude throwing the ball. So I think it's really good. He's coming off of some injuries, probably going to be healthy somewhere around August, something like that. But hey, season doesn't start till November, so as long as you're healthy a little bit before practice starts, I think you're going to be fine. And obviously, Connor played under Darren DeVries at Drake, so there's a coach-player relationship that worked very well, that was very productive. There's a coach who looks at this player and goes, I know what he's about. He's about the right things. There's a player who looks at a coach and goes, I played for him. I know how to run his stuff. But that 37.5 assist rate is just crazy. You get somebody like that with some shooters out there on the floor, and you could have a pretty productive offense.
Is that Indiana's, as far as you know, primary point guard target right now?
At the moment, there will be some others, I think, pop up here in short order. And the other thing, and I put this on the Peas.com board a couple different times, I think, but just so people understand kind of timing, let's say, of the transfer portal. This isn't a draft. It's not like your first round draft pick is the guy you have rated the highest, then your second round, then your third. You may get a guy who, hey, you really like the guy, may not be your lead dog, but you want him on your roster and you can get him now. You go ahead and take him. It doesn't mean you're not going to get better players later or anything like that. So I would encourage people, don't get too spun up about the timing of when you get players. As you go through the portal, if you like a guy and you want him on your team, you might get him early, you might get him in the middle, you might get him in the later part. But the timing is not indicative of whether he's going to be your first guy, second guy, third guy, or what have you. So I think it's important for people to just keep that in mind. But the portal sort of is a thing where you're grabbing different pieces as the whole process goes, and you can get pieces early, you can get them in the middle, you can get them late.
I know it's not an exact analogy, but because of the money at play here, it is a little bit, while it's not a draft, it's a little bit more like a fantasy football auction, if anybody has done those, because there's different strategies. Do you spend money early to get a guy who maybe isn't like your top guy, but you've got him to build depth with? Or do you keep your powder dry and go as late as you can? Or do you overspend at the beginning when you know you can kind of shock the system and get a guy by overpaying at the beginning, but you know you have them and just know that you've got less money and hopefully you'll get guys at the end. There is that game being played, and we've never really seen anything like it, as we've been saying the last several years, because of a couple big differences. This is the first year that revenue sharing is part of the compensation for players. So everybody in the Power Four, the money for that they're being able to budget is going way up. Now, I won't even say slight. There are some big differences between what some teams are giving in revenue share and what others, depending on how much basketball is valued at a school. The word is that Indiana will be number 1 or 2 in the Big Ten as far as how much they're giving to basketball from the share of total revenue. Is that what you're hearing as well, Rabbi?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So this is all a really interesting process to play out, because while it's not a draft, you do have to think about, where am I spending my money? How much do I need to keep? Who may still be available to us? And players and agents get to play that game too. There were several players and agents last year that waited to the end of the transfer portal season. Guys like, if I'm not mistaken, I think Coleman Hawkins was a guy who waited really long last year and got paid ultimately by Kansas State, but waited. So it's very interesting how this is going to play out, and I don't think anybody knows exactly how it will go. I have to ask you about this guy because it's on the boards, it's on Twitter. I almost hate bringing it up, but I have to. Flory Badunga entered the transfer portal. We all know Flory's story. Is there any reason for Indiana to be... I've seen reports online that he's visiting this week. Where are we with this? Or is this just another Flory tease for Indiana like we went through 2 years ago?
Yeah. Right now, here's the situation. There's a lot of speculation being thrown out, but as we record this podcast, there is no Indiana visit scheduled for Flory Badunga. There's no guarantee he does visit. Auburn, basically what sources have told me, told Travis Branham, Auburn's in deep and has been in deep for a while, which does make sense because Auburn was in deep when he was coming out of high school. In fact, Auburn at one point in time thought they were going to be able to slip past Kansas and get him. Kansas was able to get it done. But Auburn's got a long relationship with him and with people around him. So Auburn's a team to watch. Michigan's a team to watch. And returning to Kansas is not 100% off the table. I think, and this is just my opinion, Kansas would have to up his NIL. But Bill Self over the years has been capable of finding NIL. So,
even before NIL was a thing.
Hey, I live in the real world. It is what it is. And that's not a shot at anybody. It's just reality is reality, my friends. So I think those are the schools to watch right now. Could something change? Of course it could change. And then things in the portal sometimes change really fast, like we discussed a little bit ago. But right now, I would not spend a ton of time focused on him unless things change.
It is hard to not try to conceptualize what Coach DeVries is building, because he told us in his opening presser he is constructing a team, not a collection of players or talent. So we talk about these shooters and a facilitator, then you get somebody like Flory. I'm already imagining our starting 5 with those 5. Obviously, it would be a complete shock if we got those 5, maybe even 4 of those guys. 3 could end up being a really good place to start. But Mike Pegram came out of the fog of the pickleball court, and he put a post up a while ago, I don't know, a week or 2 at this point, about what he was watching in the NCAA tournament, about the real difference between the teams that are real contenders and everybody else. And I think you could even say, when you're looking at SEC teams, or now we've got these Final Four teams, the power, the explosion, the speed, the athleticism, the ability to kind of create their own shots or overpower their opponents. Obviously, Indiana was not anywhere close to that, but even with 2 or 3 teams kind of making a push, nobody from the Big Ten got to the Final Four. Nobody from the Big Ten has won a national championship for over 20 years.
We're at 25 now.
25. Yeah. Yeah. So, Rabbi, when you look at these guys he's already targeting, but maybe some of the other guys he could or should target, or maybe you've heard could be in the portal that maybe, what does IU need to do? Great. We love hearing that we're focused on shooting again. Like, it's unbelievable that is a novel conversation after 2 straight coaching regimes that didn't prioritize shooting. Absurd. So I'm so glad we're now taking that for granted. Yes, we're prioritizing shooting, of course. But when we're talking about big, badass dudes who can really just take it to the other top teams in the country, what do you think? Is that something this staff is already looking at? Is that available to us with the money we have? How are we going to compete, not just in the money we spend, but the kind of players we're actually bringing in when it gets to late March and early April?
Yeah, I don't think Indiana is going to be able to get to the top level in a year or two. I think it's going to take more time than that. And I know people's frustration has been building over the course of years, probably even, it's fair to say, over the course of a couple of decades, but it's not going to happen all at once, I don't believe. I just don't think it's going to happen. You're going to get better, but you're going to have to still stair step it up. But yeah, the guys on the Auburns of the world, I mean, look at the Hod Pettiford, okay? Unbelievable athlete, unbelievable shot maker, skilled at creating his own shot, can get guys off balance, has tremendous footwork to be able to create a variety of shots, and the skills to make a variety of shots. That guy comes off the bench for Auburn. That's how good these teams are that are in the Final Four this year. Milos Uzan for Houston, the one guy Houston got in the transfer portal. Similar kind of guy, had a career high, I believe it was career high, at least season high, in threes made in the Elite Eight game. I think it was the Elite Eight game, maybe Sweet 16. But guys who can do that kind of stuff in the NCAA tournament to essentially power you to big time wins. Those are the kind of guys you need to get in time. But I don't think that's going to happen immediately for Indiana. I just don't. They're going to get good players, I believe. But I don't think, Indiana's got to get back to the point to where they're a regular NCAA tournament team. That's step one. That's job one. So I think it's gonna take, some time to build. And Darren DeVries still wants to build with high school players as well. Right. He does not want to be portal dependent. He does not want the entire IU basketball program to depend on the portal every stinking spring, because he knows that's a dangerous ledge to walk out on. I think, Eric, you said this a number of years ago. It's like tightrope without a net, I think was your phrase, something like that.
That's
that was
living
a great
in
phrase.
The portal. Living in the portal.
Yeah. And DeVries is all about, like, if we can make additions in the portal, yes, we're going to do that. We're going to use all mechanisms available. But he does not want the program to be 100% portal dependent year after year after year. So we're going to see some high school guys. He kept Trent Sisley. I've talked to him about Trent Sisley. He's excited about bringing Sisley in. And I think over the course of the next few years, you will see him identify high school players who he feels can help you win, bring them in. And he also likes the idea of recruit, retain, develop, which that really hasn't been a part of IU basketball for some time now. Too many guys came in under the previous regime, either didn't develop or weren't kept long enough, and then they leave. And Tamar Bates goes to Missouri, helps them become a nationally ranked team. CJ Gunn goes to DePaul, helps them win Big East road games for the first time in, I don't know, a year, two, whatever it was. But
Caleb Banks to the brink of the NCAA tournament at Tulane.
Caleb Banks did a phenomenal job at Tulane. So I think you're going to see a little more recruit, retain, develop, be a piece of IU basketball under Dan DeVries.
All right, so in that vein, do you think that, and I'll be honest, my focus on 2025 recruits that have been undecided or that might spring loose because of coaching changes, and I think in the Division I ranks, what were there, 40-something coaching changes, I think, something like that? Do you think that he's looking at some 2025 class freshman recruits? And I'm just going to throw it out. We all saw, and we may talk about this in some detail later with his coach, but Trey Singleton, who kind of had a coming out party this year, and especially in the state championship game where he led Jeffersonville, coached by Chiron Wilkerson, wink, wink, maybe our guest coming up, to a championship. Do you see Darren DeVries focusing there to find a couple, to quote Ward, couple three guys that might be freshmen this year?
I think he's going to take a look. Whether they pursue or not is going to depend a little on, who they get in the portal, and are guys they get in the portal guys who have multiple years or 1 year. So there's a lot of moving pieces to kind of put on the board all at the same time. But yeah, I do think he's going to take a look. And certainly Trey Singleton, obviously people know, but if they don't, it did sign with Northwestern. Northwestern knows that they want to try to keep him. They went 4 deep for the state finals, even took the jet, flew down, make sure all 4 are there, and then they can get back to do their other stuff. But he signed with Northwestern. I do know that Sherron Wilkerson and some other people last year, when Trey Singleton had a couple really big games out at Rock Hill, South Carolina, while playing for Indiana Elite. He had a phenomenal game against a guy named Nate Ament, who's a top 10, top 5 type player in the country. There were people who reached out to the previous IU staff and said, guys, Trey Singleton would love to play at IU. Why don't you recruit him? And that unfortunately didn't go very far, or really anywhere. And Singleton, he was so good that a number of schools, Wake Forest, obviously Northwestern, several others, really went hard after him. So that's where that stands at the moment. Obviously, Des Briscoe is the guy who led Crispus Attucks to the 3A state championship game. They finished runner-up. 6'8" power forward with an unbelievable wingspan, fantastic shot blocker and rebounder, developing offensive game. He's now open. He was committed. He was an Iowa signee. So that's somebody that, IU will at least take a look at, have some conversations about. And then there's a couple other guys out there who I think, if they aren't open back up, would contemplate it. But those are things to be figured out here in the next couple of weeks. But to answer your question, yes, I do think DeVries is at least going to look at some guys who are in the 2025 high school class who potentially could become targets.
This kills me, gentlemen. I have to go. I have to pick up kids from school and take them to Taekwondo. I want to do this for about 3 or 4 more hours. Are you guys going to wrap up, or do I just say goodbye? And
I think you say goodbye. I got a couple more little questions.
Yeah, Rabbi.
Well, I want to know: is it only the kids who are in Taekwondo, or does Dad get out there and throw some punches too?
Look, I back in the day, I might have had a yellow belt. This particular dojang might have adult classes at night that I'm sniffing around, but I don't have a dobak yet. No, I'm not there.
Why did you say dojang? Isn't it dojo?
No, not if you're in Taekwondo, which is a Korean martial art. It's a do.
I took Taekwondo as a kid. They called it dojo.
Yeah, where the instructors from Korea.
Dude,
I'm just checking.
You could take your DEI and stick it.
I'm just going for accuracy here. So no.
All right. You have a good time. Always good talking with you, brother.
You too, Rabbi. Thank you so much for imparting your knowledge. And I hope we do this again real soon. It's real fun to talk about an IU regime that is undefeated.
What are the chances that Indiana has, not counting Tucker DeVries, a commitment or two by the end of this week?
It's at least possible. I think
that's a cop-out answer. That's a cop-out.
It is. I think Ryan Conwell and Josh Dix are highly likely to have decisions by the end of the week. I don't think they want to just delay it for no reason. And I think especially with Ryan Conwell visiting Indiana, Louisville, and Texas, 3 days in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think he's going to sit down and figure out where he's going to go this week. I think Josh Dix is likely. I also think Connor Enright's probably pretty likely. I think that's probably trending toward Indiana or Iowa. And I think it's trending a little more toward Indiana, but Iowa's in there trying to fight. So we'll see where that goes. But I think there's a good chance all three I would say it's likely all three have decisions one way or the other by the end of the week.
One thing we have not heard a lot about, I know we touched on Flory, is big men.
Mhm.
And are there some big men out there that you're hearing? Is Indiana focused more on the wings and guards right now? Obviously, it seems that way. But what are you hearing on the big men approach from Darren DeVries?
Yeah, they're working on all of it. Just because guards and wings are visiting first, I would not interpret that as they're more focused on guards and wings than other things. It's just they were able to get these guys on campus first. There are some bigs that they're looking at. There are some versatile bigs out there too. There's a couple of guys who I would call them more fours than fives, but depending upon how you want to play, they could be a five who can actually shoot the three. So I think Indiana is going to take a look at some of those kind of guys. That'll be head coaching decisions as far as are you willing to take somebody who's not a rim protector, but they can make threes, so you have an advantage by being able to pull an opposing team center out to the arc, out to the perimeter on offense, and give up maybe a little bit on defense. But yeah, they're looking at all positions right now, and they're in communication with a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of agents. And I think you're going to see some post players on campus after the dead period ends, which I think is probably the case for most schools. There's a little bit happening right now. And again, I understand that the fans are highly focused on, we only got two players. Who are we going to get? Who are we going to get? I get it. But I think there's going to be more happen after April 10th than happens before April 3rd, especially for teams that need 5, 6, 7, 8 guys in the portal.
Rabbi, a little birdie told me that you were able to do some sit-down interviewing one-on-one with Coach DeVries, and those stories are going to be rolling out if one of them hasn't already. I think one of them is rolled out yesterday, meaning Monday. What was it like sitting down with him for the first time? I assume that's your first time getting any really good one-on-one time with him. What can you tell Indiana fans about him?
Yeah, it was had a great sit-down conversation with him. Trevor Andershock and I both did. And I think the thing that jumps out is there's detail in the answers. There's real detail in the answers. You know, he talked specifically about what kinds of players he wants to put on the team, what he wants the guards and wings best skills to be, how he wants to go about building his team's defense, why he focuses on defensive rebounding to make sure you're not giving up second chances. He talked about how he studies players in the portal. We talked a lot about, his son's development, talked a lot about Trent Sisley, talked about scheduling things. That'll be interesting here in a few days. Wink, wink. Talked about just a lot of details about the program overall. Talked about how he wants to utilize scholarship numbers. You can go to 15. He has some specific thoughts on how he wants that to be numerically, and talked about just the overall philosophy of teaching. Got in depth a little bit about the whole how they came up with the idea when they were at Creighton of trying to attack within the first 12 seconds, the sort of the genesis of when that came about, which I'd heard a little bit, but some of the stories that have floated around actually aren't accurate. And so I'm going to do a story where DeVries explains sort of how this started. But I think the biggest thing is that there's a lot of detail in that mind, a lot of detail. And it's going to be fun. I don't know how many stories we're going to end up writing off of it, but 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, maybe, I don't know. But it was a really good conversation. It was a long conversation, a little more than, 30 minutes or so, something like that. I have to double check. But there was detail on the answers. And I think that's really good. When somebody answers a question with details, they've really thought about it and they got a pretty clear vision of, okay, on that topic, here's what I'm aiming for. That's what really jumped out to me, just sitting there in the office talking with Darren DeVries.
Awesome. So Peegs.com, we can expect to see those over the coming days?
Yeah. Well, aiming to roll them out over the next, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days or whatever. May depend a little on portal news. Like, obviously if there's a commitment or something, focus on the news. But yeah, I would say over the next at least 10 days to 2 weeks, you'll see a lot of stories from our sit-down conversation with new IU coach Darren DeVries.
You gave a wink wink on the scheduling thing. Is that a wink wink that maybe there's going to be some scheduling announcements in the coming future?
I don't know about announcements. I don't know about announcements, but there's some things being discussed that I find very interesting. I can't give details. I was asked not to give details, so I'm not going to give details. But I think there's there's some things that are potentially coming. I don't know if they're going to definitely happen this year, might be next year, but they're at least getting discussed as far as some things that I think are pretty cool for potential IU scheduling options, shall we say.
Well, the interesting thing is, I mean, he talked about it in his press conference, right? Where he said, like, I want to play the best teams. It helps us prepare for the Big Ten. I want to play bigger games. And he talked about how we have Marquette and Kentucky on the schedule next year, but he was still looking at one or two more. So that is music to the ears of virtually every single Indiana fan. This is an exciting as hell time for Indiana. It's interesting, though, because it's exciting and mixed with some sadness because of things like Rink retiring, the Tim Garl departure. It does feel like a real goodbye to the yesteryear and a focus on the future and a rebrand and a resetting of Indiana, which needs to happen, no doubt. But guys like Tim Garl and Dr. Rink, they're part of the fabric of Indiana University basketball for the last 45, 50 years. So, you hate that, like, you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but sometimes you do. And it feels a little bit like that's what's happening at Indiana. I just hope that there is still, Darren talked about it, there's still a reverence for the people that came before and what they did, because that does deserve recognition. And it is why the fans care, because Indiana has built a history on those people. So I just hope we don't lose sight of that as we move forward. And I don't think we will, because Darren seems to be a guy who wants to embrace the history of Indiana. He definitely doesn't seem to want to run away from it.
No. That was we touched on that a little bit when we were sitting there talking there in his office. He has great respect for and appreciation of IU's history, the great coaches and players who came before. He really does. So even though there's a lot going on with IU basketball from the reset standpoint, he definitely has great appreciation for IU's tradition and history, and he knows that's why IU's IU. I mean, we were even talking a little bit, and he even mentioned, like, you grow up in the Midwest, and it's, Big 8, Big 10. And he's like, that's what you grew up with. And he's like, one of the names that you always thought of when you thought of college basketball was Indiana. And so, yeah, he definitely has great appreciation for Indiana's history.
I love that. You excited, buddy? This is fun, right? This is more fun than the last couple of years.
It's fun. Yeah. It's portal season. Portal season's wild, but it's fun. It's more than just portal season. It's the rebuild of the Indiana basketball roster.
Yes.
Okay. So it's really interesting to see. And again, this is you got to put together a team for next year. I understand that's the focus of the moment. But to me, the interesting thing is, how is IU's roster going to get built over the next 2, 3, 4 years? What kinds of players are going to come in? How are they going to play offensively? How are they going to play defensively? And I think there's going to be a better brand of basketball on the court. I think you're going to see a more modern offense. I think you're going to see just better concepts defensively. But the rebuilding, the chance for all of us together to sit here and watch sort of the rebuilding of the IU basketball roster is really interesting, because Tom Crean had to do it, 15 years ago now, or whatever it was?
Yeah.
But this is different because you have the portal, because you have NIL, because you have revenue sharing. You have more opportunities. But I think for all of us, media folks, fans, all of us together, we're all watching the rebuild of the IU basketball roster. To me, I think that's really fascinating.
I agree. I will push back on one thing that you said earlier. While we may not become Auburn in 1 or 2 years, or where, Duke is, I mean, it's not like Florida and Todd Golden have been doing it for 10 years. It's not like Texas Tech with Grant McCaslin has been doing it for a long time. Dusty May is in year 1, and they won the Big Ten tournament and made the Sweet 16. Like, there's every reason to believe we can do what those teams are doing. It's been done by several. I'm not saying we're going to be a national champion in year 1, but making the tournament and having a team good enough to win a game or two in the tournament is absolutely an expectation Indiana fans should have.
Sure. That's very fair. I get that.
So I'm excited about that. It is a breath of fresh air, and can't wait to read Peaks.com over the next days and weeks to see all the developments that happen with the Indiana basketball program. Rabbi, thanks for coming on and checking this and checking us in on everything that's happening. And now we do have to say goodbye to you because we are bringing on a champion on the show. So thanks, Rabbi, and we'll talk to you soon.
By the way, before we go, congratulations to the champion.
Here comes our guest. Here comes our guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we could not be more excited to have this gentleman back with us today. Things have changed in his life in a major, major way, and we just had to get him back in here to talk about this great breaking news. Eric, who do we have?
Hailing from Jeffersonville, Indiana, we're talking to a gentleman who led his Jeffersonville basketball team as a player to the state finals as a junior before winning the championship as a senior. He then, of course, was the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Indiana. He was named McDonald's High School All-American. He was named Mr. Basketball in the state of Indiana. He then went to Indiana and played basketball for the legendary Coach Knight. His career then took him all across the world, playing pro ball for 8 years, from Wisconsin to Sweden, Latvia, Turkey. He then got into coaching at the AAU level. He spent some time coaching at Sherron High School in Indianapolis. After coaching at IU Southeast, he went to Lamar, where he joined up with Pat Knight and coached with Pat Knight from 2012 to 2014, then at Lincoln Trail Community College. Then he got into high school coaching, where he was at Shaw Memorial. Then he coached 2 seasons at Madison, before 1 year at Logansport, before heading to his alma mater, Jeffersonville High School, where he has been the coach for 3 years. And this weekend, our guest today led Jeffersonville to the state championship in Class 4A. This is only his 3rd year. He beat Fishers and their 43-game win streak, ranked number 1 in the state. He is the 6th person to win an Indiana high school basketball state title as a player and a coach. We could not be more excited. I got goosebumps even doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been a guest on our show a few times. We love him. We couldn't be happier for state title champion head coach Chiron Wilkerson.
You guys are awesome, fellas. Absolutely awesome, man. I really appreciate you guys, fellas.
All right, Chiron, what is going on in your life right now since Saturday night?
Fellas, it's been overwhelming support. It's been absolutely amazing, guys. I will be honest. I've gotten obviously a lot of text, but some of the text that I've gotten has it's been from some people that I never even thought really even paid attention to anything that I had going on in my life, and to have those people show support. It's been unbelievable.
Chiron, has any of those people asked you if you're interested in a career in voiceover? Because just every time you start talking, I was like, oh, this guy has the coolest voice. It's clearly something the young men of Jeffersonville respond to. What has it been like sharing these last few days with those young men whose lives you've been shaping and their families?
I will be honest with you guys, fellas. It's been really it's been surreal, and I know it's cliche-ish. I know a lot of people say that, but I think from our perspective, so you got a group of guys, right, that set out to accomplish a dream. 3rd grade, we'll call it. So in the 3rd grade, these guys set out to accomplish the fact of winning the state championship here in the state of Indiana, and to set back and to have the best seat in the house and watch those dreams come to fruition. It's unbelievable. And so it's and guys, I don't, obviously my role, right, is the head coach, but just sitting back and having the opportunity to be immersed in the life of these student athletes has been an ultimate blessing.
Just to clarify, I just want to clarify that. Are you saying that these seniors sort of made a pact in 3rd grade or started talking about winning a state championship in 3rd grade?
That's correct.
That's incredible. I had not read that.
So we have 8 seniors on our roster. We'll be graduating 8 seniors, but 4 of the seniors, they've been together since. And guys, it may even have been earlier than 3rd grade, but I just chose 3rd grade just because it was easy. But they've been together forever. And in fact, when it came time for the student athletes and their families to make a decision on where they were going to attend high school, all 4 of them made a pact that they would come to Jeffersonville and they would win a state championship. So to be a part of that and to have that come to fruition it's literally a dream.
All right, you're way too humble, and we're going to crack through that humility. We're going to do that at some point during this thing. But I got to ask, give us a couple of the names of people from your prior life that reached out to you that really touched you. Can you give us a couple names?
Probably the 2 big, well, obviously the former players, Pat Graham, Brian Evans, probably the 2 biggest, Ray Tolbert and Kent Benson.
Wow.
I mean, fellas, like those are, man, that's why you want to go to IU, right? Man, so I think to have those guys reach out, offering their support and acknowledging what we accomplished, and it puts it in a different perspective.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to get to the moment of the championship game, but let's back up a little bit because, I mean, really, this journey for you started, I don't know, 40 years ago. But really, let's just talk about like the end of last year. So the end of last year, like you came up just short, right? Like just short. You were right there. And then this year has been tumultuous. You had to deal with some injuries, a lot of talent on your team. But you dealt with a lot of injuries. Just walk us through your mindset after last year ends and you come up short. Were there things that you wanted to do differently? Was it just the way the ball bounced and it was just back to the grind? What was your mindset after last season came up just short?
Well, we really it was difficult because we were trying to get our student athletes ready to make a deep run in the state tournament of Indiana, but we were also trying to refine their recruitment process. So if you guys we ended the last week of March, the second to last week of March, but then we had to turn right back around and get ourselves ready for April, May, and June, because those were the times that the college coaches is out evaluating the student athletes. So we didn't have very long to lick our wounds before we had to move on to the next feat. And fellas, it was so critical at that time because we only had a short amount of time to fit all of that in. Right. So you had to prepare for the high school tournament in the season, but you also had to prepare to get them ready to be recruited and to be evaluated. So it was extremely difficult from a scheduling standpoint. And then also it was extremely difficult from a time management standpoint because you move right from the season right into the off season. And it's pretty hectic and intense.
It seemed pretty clear going into this season that the target is on the back of Fishers. They're on this historic undefeated path. They've already won the state championship. What, in looking at them and going into this season, what did you think needed to be changed or ramped up or in any way altered to be able to take down the Goliath, as you said, by the hand of your Davids?
Well, I think the main thing for us was our mental toughness. Guys, the state of Indiana is kind of divided, if you will. Not when I say divided, I mean from a standpoint of competition, being competitive, right? So the central part of Indiana is really well respected, obviously. So for us, in order for us to learn what it meant to play at a high level, we had to make that adjustment in accordance to how the central part of the state played. So the first thing that we did, we reached out to Coach Delaney at Cathedral. And at that time, these guys' sophomore year, Cathedral had the #1 ranked player in the country on their team. Booker actually played at Michigan State.
Booker. Yeah,
absolutely. So we brought him in. Of course, Coach Delaney was gracious enough to come to us. And he came down to our home gym. And the first game that I coached these guys, we got beat 50.
Wow.
So I think, but we had to show them. Right, we had to show them the standard that we was chasing. I think that was the first thing that we had to do so they could understand how difficult it would be. So we did that. And then obviously their sophomore years, we was up 15 at halftime of the first round of the sectional, we get beat. We come back their junior year, we're up 6 points with a minute and 20 seconds left, we get beat. Right. And then come back their senior year and to have an opportunity to win the state championship and then get it done. I think paints a picture of how far our program and our student athletes have developed.
Sherron, what kind of coach are you? If you had to describe, imagine that we're somebody that's thinking about coming to Jeffersonville to play. How would you describe your coaching style and what your program is about?
Assuming that you have enough NIL money to attract us.
Right, exactly, because we drive a hard bargain.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a little bit different take, guys, than probably most, I would say. I think that the first thing that you have to do is hook the parents. I think that if you hook the parents, I think then typically you kind of box the student athlete in, if you will. So the first thing that I would do is I would let the parents know how important the education piece is. And here's what I would do. So from a standpoint of recruiting you out of high school, I would tell you if you're 2025, I'm going to offer you for 2027. And I'm going to calmly explain to your parents why. And the reason why is if I send you to a junior college now, you can play 2 years and you still get the opportunity to play 4 years at a 4-year university. Mm-hmm. So bringing you in as an 18-year-old kid, now I'm going to bring you in as a 20-year-old grown adult. You have 2 years of experience of being able to develop off the floor, in the classroom and socially. And then additionally, you also have that extra 2 years to develop on the floor. When you come to me, you're already going to have your associate's degree. You play for me for 2 years, you're going to have your bachelor's degree. We're going to take care of you NIL-wise. And then lastly, if you decide to spend your last 2 years with us, you're going to have a master's degree. I don't know how much money you're going to have in NIL, but you're going to be financially well off. And you're going to leave my program with a bunch of wins, with a bunch of NIL money, with a master's degree, and potentially the opportunity to play at the professional level. So I'm not for sure what else we could offer you and your family, but by all accounts, I believe that we got a pretty good vision for you in place.
All right. Well, that's your pitch as a college coach, which is unbelievable. But what about high school?
I think that it's moved to high school now, guys. The state of Indiana just recently passed through the NIL deal at the high school level.
Right.
And are you starting to see like parents asking about that?
It's starting to come right now.
Oh wow. Man, that is nuts.
It's already
all right. So give us into the weeds a little bit of you as a coach at Jeffersonville. What's your style? Where do you take from? Like, is there some coach night in you? Is there some, like, what'd you learn along the way? Walk us through Chiron Wilkerson as a coach.
So obviously my high school coach, Michael Broughton, and then Coach Knight was the two biggest influences. But I had an opportunity to spend some time with Coach Pitino. Had an opportunity, obviously, to play for some really, really good coaches in Europe, play for 3 Olympic team coaches. So take all of those philosophies, I've combined it into my own, and then probably to take it a step further. So I tell guys that with me, you get 2 people. First, you get Chiron. And Chiron is the cool person. Chiron is the person that sits down and has open dialogue. We have feedback from each other. I get your feedback. I get your opinions. We go back and forth, right? Then you have Coach. And there is no feedback or dialogue with Coach. And I think that the thing is, and I truly believe this. So I coach hard, fellas. I coach hard, but we love them hard. And every day from 3 until 3:30, we have what we call Life 101. And we, during that time, we typically will either show a video clip from a coach. We'll show a clip from maybe a spiritual leader, maybe a professional within corporate America, maybe a life coach, whatever it may be. We use those folks as examples to hammer our message home on how it applies to our students and our student athletes in their everyday life. And then once 3:30 hits, then we move to basketball. But I think that it's important from 3 until 3:30, we get Life 101, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're late to class, you're going to be late on the defensive rotation.
I love that. Are there coaches out there currently that you look to in helping you shape your offensive system or defensive system? Are you, for those of us who don't get the pleasure of watching a lot of Jeffersonville play, are you a man-to-man guy? Are you zone? Are you up-tempo? Like, how do you view basketball these days and the best way to win?
Well, my personal philosophy is man-to-man, but what we do is we look at our opponent's strength and then we adjust our game plan accordingly. So to give you a prime example, obviously in this state championship game, Fishers was really good in the open floor. Fishers is really good at countering and attacking you after you scored a basketball. So we decided to put in a little press man that would slow him down. And we thought that it could buy us a little bit of time, if you will. So the first 3 or 4 minutes, we ran a 22 press, and we really slowed them down and made them make some passes before entering their offense. And I thought that it gave us an advantage. And then once our nerves settled down and once our emotions got under control, then we moved into our normal identity, and that is to pick you up full court and to guard you. And thankful for us, it worked out.
If you could take us a little bit through the run, I think then we can focus in on what is a championship game that nobody will ever forget who was in attendance by all reports. But take us a little bit from your perspective through maybe even sort of the crucial games in the regular season and then through the playoff run, that when you 20 years from now are fondly reflecting on this, or at your favorite Jeffersonville restaurant with the team and you were just honored at halftime of the homecoming game, what are you going to remember from the run?
So probably what I will remember the most is the way that we started. So we had built a lot of momentum from last season and the off season. We were in the middle of having all the college coaches come in and get an intimate view of our student athletes, in their home environment. And in fact, the day that Trey broke his foot, Coach Bennett in Virginia was here. Oh, wow. On a well, I won't say an official visit per se, right, but they were here evaluating Trey in an intimate setting. And we were in a drill, and Trey went up to dunk it. And when he dunked it, he landed and broke his foot. Oh. Now, at that time, fellas, it was mid-September. So a couple of things at that time, fellas, it was devastating because, when something like that happens, there's a lot of questions. But two of the questions were, when is he going to recover? And if he does recover, is he going to be the same player? Right. So those were the two questions that at that time we didn't have any answers for. So we were kind of going into the season a little bit blinded, if you will. But fortunate for us, we had some young guys that got thrown to the fire. They had to mature really, really fast. We couldn't bring them along like we had initially planned because of the circumstances. And then once we got a little past Christmas, moving into the easier part of our schedule, specifically playing the Lawrence North game, that was the game that Trey came back and we kind of felt that he was physically ready. We didn't start him that game, but we kind of felt like he was physically ready, if you will. And we got beat. We lost by 6 points to that game on the road, but we felt that was the turnaround because we kind of felt like having Trey back full strength had answered some tough questions for us. And then from that point, we just kind of felt like that if we could spend some time preparing and getting our identity back, that we would be all right.
You, Sherron the player, not Sherron the coach, Sherron the guy, has a history of knowing what it's like to suffer a pretty devastating injury. How much of Sherron the guy was with Trey helping him through that injury, and how much did that help you in being able to be there for him in a way that someone who hadn't gone through what you did would not be able to?
I think it allowed me to be able to alleviate some of his stress and his worries. I think that was probably the biggest hurdle for him. And that's the mindset that I was in. Obviously, I have to make sure that, number one, that his mindset and his mental health is in a good place. And I think sometimes, folks, I'm not for sure that the average person really understands how bad something like that impacts you from a mental perspective. I mean, you spend your whole life getting to this point, and then all of a sudden, just at the drop of an eye, it's taken away from you. So it can be devastating. So we wanted to make sure from a mental standpoint that he was able to continue to have a positive approach. And then I think the thing that really helped him was being able to have conversations about how hard it was going to be to come back from a rehab perspective. Like it's one thing to have an injury, obviously get yourself healed and then get yourself to a point to where you can walk again. But I think the thing that people have to forget, not only was we preparing Trey to have to walk again, but we was preparing him to be able to play basketball at an extremely high level. And that in itself is a different approach.
You talk about turning it around with the Lawrence North loss. Mm-hmm. You didn't lose again after that.
No, we didn't.
So you definitely turned it around at that point. What did you maybe in terms of then getting Trey back at full strength? Did you see any kind of difference in him as a person or as a player when he came back after being through a fire like that?
He came back more determined.
Mm-hmm.
Trey's what I would consider to be a very emotionally mature young man. And typically at this level, specifically with his talent level, you really don't find that. He's a lot of people always are quick to give a future about a person's talent. But here's what I would say about Trey Singleton. Obviously, his talent is through the roof, but his approach off the floor, his approach in regards to his diet and his development and how he takes care of himself, his approach in making sure that from a standpoint of his physicality in the weight room, from a standpoint of agility, from a standpoint of just the overall preparation, he's a pro. And I've said this on many occasions. And it's and I would tell you, fellas, especially after having the opportunity to play at the professional level, it's not easy to say that a high school kid is going to be a professional, but by all accounts, it's just an accurate assessment for a young man where Trey Singleton is right now.
All right, let's get to the state championship game. I want to know your reaction, what was going through your head the moment you walk out onto that court at Gamebridge and you look around and there's people in every deck. It's filled. I mean, there were reports that this is the most well-attended state championship games in a long time in Indiana. Did you allow yourself to take it in at all, or are you just laser focused? I mean, you're a serious dude. We know that. But when you walk out and see that, Sherron, do you just take a moment to take it in? What was your first thought as you came out of the tunnel and saw that?
That the state of Indiana gets to see the adult version of Chiron Wilkerson.
Wow.
That was my thought. I mean, it's fellas, it's really difficult as a young man growing up in the public eye. I mean, it's difficult, right? And obviously, I had some growing up to do. But here's the thing for me, and it's obviously emotional. But here's what I would tell you folks, and I have to tell you this because I think that it brings it full circle, right? So obviously, I took the scenic route. But one of the things that happened to me when we got back here after the game on Saturday night, we walked in the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was 2 a.m. And obviously it was great. It was about 1,000 people here. And I happened to turn around as I had just got finished addressing the crowd. And there was a couple that I'm really close to from Madison, Indiana, that had drove down from Madison at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that drive from Madison is about an hour drive. So to have something like that happen in a situation like this, like I look back and I say to myself, Sherron, you let a lot of people down. You disappointed a lot of people. I mean, but as you went through that process of restoring yourself, you met a lot of wonderful people that have really impacted your life. I mean, man, so I guess it's just how you look at it, or the perspective of what you look at it from. Will allow you to say, hey, it's probably one of the best restoration stories in the state of Indiana that's been around in a long, long time.
Absolutely. And what I'm hearing from you, Sherron, is it's been a long journey to forgive yourself and maybe really love yourself to the fullest degree you need to be able to do that for those around you. Would you say that's a fair assessment, that the amount of love you need to give to these young men and the family and the community, like you kind of had to find that for yourself first? Was that journey complete a while ago and allowed you to get to this point, or has this brought that journey full circle for you?
It's a great question. Good, fellas, I've always said this, that God has been in control of this thing from day one. But here's what happened. Obviously, you guys know my story from a standpoint of being here. Everywhere I go, fellas, it was something that I had to face. Right? God literally removed me from the equation and took me across the world. And at that time, that's what I needed. Like I needed to be isolated, right? I needed to get away from my normal day-to-day life so I could focus on what I needed to focus on from a spiritual perspective. And fellas, when you go to a different country and you don't speak their language and you don't understand their customs and man, you don't understand their socialisms and you don't like you become isolated you become isolated in your own world. Mm-hmm. Like you go to practice and then I go back to my apartment and it's quiet. And when it's quiet, you learn a lot about yourself. And that during that time, folks, I was listening to Lauryn Hill. And I don't know, it was just the words and the music and, reading the Bible and understanding, what was going on. It just all gave me the opportunity to refine myself and more specifically forgive myself. And then from that point, I think that the healing process started. And that healing process was decades, fellas. It was decades.
All right. So now we're in the championship game and it is back and forth. I mean, this game is tight. Like no one takes a commanding lead, right? Somebody's up by 3, somebody's up by 2, somebody's up by 4. It's back and forth.
It was stressful just to read like the updates, right? Where you're looking and even already knowing that you guys won, it was still stressful to read about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Then you get to the end of regulation and 60-60, I think is the score at the end of regulation. And you've got a shot. You've got you call a play. It's a full court. You've got about 4 seconds, I think, to get the length of the court.
That's great.
The ball goes up, hits the backboard, and just rolls out. What are you feeling in that moment? It always amazes me that coaches can just turn it it's hard to fans can't just move on, right? But you have to. Are you able to immediately gather the guys, get them recomposed after that? What do you say to them as they come to you? Now it's a new game in overtime, starting 0-0. What's your message to them?
Well, obviously, there's 2 things. Number one, immediately I go back to experience as a player. I think that is so important, right? Because because as a player, you feel that emotion, so you know how to respond to it. And then the second thing, when they came over, first thing that I did, I was like, fellas, this is absolutely awesome. Like, you get to play for a state championship in overtime. Like, where else would you want to be in the world right now?
Right.
Right. And I think that sometimes, as coaches, we are always intense, right? Trying to push our players, trying to challenge our players, especially in the heat of the moment. But I think sometimes you have to play reverse psychology on them, right? Because it's especially for young student athletes, it's really easy to get lost in the emotional turbulence. And we had to make them laugh. And then once I made them laugh, then I reeled them back in and we focused on keeping the main thing. And I told them that, you got 4 minutes to dig deep and this will be a lifetime of glory if you can survive these 4 minutes. And divine intervention, man, we was fortunate to come out.
Do you get any flashes of Coach Knight, or you said you got to spend some time with Coach Pitino? Do you get any flashes of them in those moments or in moments of overtime where you're like, oh, I remember they said something like this, or I'm going to pull something from them? Does that ever happen?
Semi-state, it did. And I
Walk us through that.
So we recently, we reached out to Pat Knight at Marion. Obviously, you guys know he's at Marion. So we went up Friday and we practiced at Marion. And he met us. We arrived to the facility and he met us, of course, say hello. We hadn't seen each other. So we said hello, we talked for a second. And then the team went into the gym and I told him, I said, hey, Pat, I said that semi-state game, we got down 9 or 10, I think. And I said, I called timeout. And I said, I'd never seen all of my guys be shook like that. Like over the course of 3 years, I've seen them all at one point individually be low and be high. But collectively, I'd never seen them all be shook like that. And it was funny because when I called the timeout, it felt like it took forever for them to get over to me. And then while they were walking over to me, I told Pat, I said, man, I literally felt like Coach Knight touched my soul and said, do this. And I don't know, man, I told him what I felt in my spirit and it ended up working out. But I mean, at that time, I wasn't shook per se, but I was just trying to figure out what I was going to say to him. And you guys know I'm pretty intense, and I kept telling myself, don't yell at them. Like I just kept telling myself the entire time, don't yell at them. And then right before they came to me and got to the huddle, coach was like, tell them this. And that's what I told him.
What was this? What was this?
So I told him at that time, fellas, I can't remember verbatim exactly, but
Sure.
I told him at that time, I said, man, you guys have spent your whole life working up to this point. There's no way that you're going to allow this moment to break you. I said, there's nobody that has pushed you in your life as hard as I have. This is a piece of cake, fellas. This is nothing in comparison to where you've been. Let's go get it done. And they responded.
Do you know that that is beautiful? It reminds me, I'm getting goosebumps because it's been told many times in different ways, but the 1976 team the undefeated team at halftime of the national championship game, it was a dogfight. Like it wasn't great. And Coach Knight has been said that he gave a speech that sounds very much like what you just said. Very much like it. Like, guys, you've got 20 minutes to make history. You've got 20 minutes to do what you've been working this hard for. Didn't yell at them. Didn't do any of that. It sounds very similar to what Coach Knight reached out to you in that moment and touched your soul. That is incredible. So let's go to the championship game. Let's go to overtime. It's back and forth. You eke out a lead, but then they've got the ball. They've got a shot to win the state championship. I believe there's a timeout right before that, correct? What are you telling them in that timeout? And then just walk us through that timeout to the final play.
So our point of emphasis the entire year preparing for the state championship is you got to guard and rebound. Right? It's not going to come down to you making a shot. You may have the opportunity to make a shot the last play of the game, but to get to that point, it's not going to be whether you make shots or not. It's going to be whether you can guard and rebound it. So when we got to that point, I used that as a reference. I said, fellas, remember when we said it was going to come down. And as soon as I said that, fellas, all of their eyes lit up like light bulbs. So I knew that we had their full attention. And after I felt like I had their attention, I told them, you just need one more stop. Just one. If you can just get one more stop, we'll be state champs. And I mean, fellas, at that particular time, I'm not for sure that coaches can really do a whole lot of motivation. I think coaches have to be able to keep their guys. I think they have to be able to keep them calm and keep them confident. I think that is the thing. And it's and folks, it's difficult to do that, especially as a coach, because everything in you is running. It's running on 1,000 miles an hour, right? So you got to control your voice. You got to control the cadence of your voice. And I think that you have to have some type of experience to lean on in order to survive those moments.
The ball gets inbounded.
Mm-hmm.
He turns around. He takes a very difficult shot because he was guarded well. And the shot is off. Jeffersonville is state champions. Give us that moment. What is the first thing that runs through your head?
Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Yeah.
So I obviously, guys, you guys know I've coached a lot of guys over 25, 26 years. But there was one in particular that I was really, really close to. Daryl Baker is his name. His uncle was really, really good friend of mine. But I mentored him over his high school career, and things didn't work out the way that we thought that they would. So he reached out to me, and he said, basically, he said, man, you was great with me, and the public didn't get to see that. But the public gets to see how great you are with these young guys. And I told him that obviously I appreciated him reaching out. But for me, from an internal perspective, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been helping kids for 25 years the same way that I helped our current kids that just won the state championship. The difference is the public didn't get to see it. And that was that was the moments that I was refining myself so I could be this vessel. And fortunately, it says that do your work in private and you will be rewarded in the open. man, I think that my life is definitely definitely has followed that path.
Take us through the feelings, the images, like in your mind's eye, that are now burned in forever, of jumping into the arms of your team, of that whole post game celebration. Obviously, it went viral. The water shower you got in the locker room. What are those images that will be in your mental scrapbook forever?
Well, it's funny, guys, because we've always put a point of emphasis and a premium on, even when we accomplish something great, the first thing that we have to do is that we have to go over and we have to shake our opponent's hands. And it's obviously it's difficult when you accomplish such a great feat. Obviously, you're overcome with emotion, and sometimes, man, you get sidetracked for that split second. And I just remember my assistant coach grabbing me and saying that we did it. And man, and like for 3 seconds, man, I got lost in the moment, right? Yeah, like, and then I immediately turned around and said, "Hey, let's go. We got to go over here and we got to shake these guys' hand." And then
that's what burned into my head. I saw this clip has been shown. There's everybody showing their clips. That guy, your assistant coach, gives you the biggest bear hug. It's phenomenal. But after a few seconds of a long hug, you immediately take your right hand and you point down to the other people. I assume that is you pointing, "Let's go shake their hands."
That is correct.
I mean, that is so freaking classy, Sherron. So you go shake their hands. Do you exchange some words with the head coach?
Yes. Coach Winterger and I are really good friends. And, you know, it was tough because both of us was in a situation where we were both chasing history.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I had personal history involved, plus, you know, trying to lead my team from a historical perspective. And obviously he was in the same boat concerning his team. So to be in that situation and then to have it end in your favor, you know, obviously as a competitor, you want to win, but I mean, man, the humanity side of you know, understands the other perspective of the other coach and my friend. And then after getting through that piece of it and shaking the other players' hands, and obviously I have a connection with Zachary. I grew up playing with his uncle. His uncle and I were all-star teammates, Randy Zachary. So we have a little history there. So I wanted to make sure that I spent some time with him and explain to him what a special player he is. And then obviously after I got through that, then I don't know, it was kind of funny, fellas, because it's that divine timing. It just so happens that the first person I hugged was Michael Cooper, and I've probably been the hardest on him out of anybody. And to have that embrace, you know, after I had challenged him and pushed him so hard, I'm sure there was days that he walked out of here that he did not like Coach Wilk. So to have that embrace after you've challenged a player and for them to reach that culminating point, man, it's movie. It's what Hollywood is made of, fellas.
It is. So the water bath, not champagne. It's not champagne in high school.
Not champagne.
Can't be that. Are you able to totally let loose, Sherron? Is this 30 years of letting it go and being there, or what's that moment like?
Yeah, I would tell you, man. It's not even that. It's not even that perspective for me, man. First I will say that it's a big relief.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been carrying this around for a long time. So it's a relief, number one. And then number two, I think that this is an opportunity, man, to build some bridges, right? I think that obviously you have your naysayers. And I think that for a lot of folks that are in a position that's similar to ours, it would be easy to look back and try to throw it in their face, per se. But I think that I've challenged my staff and I've challenged all of our players. Let's take a different approach, right? Let's take an approach of, okay, maybe initially you misunderstood, but now maybe you can get a full picture of it now, and now you fully understand. Mm-hmm. And if we can do that, I think that it gives us the opportunity not only to build on what we currently have, but I think that it gives us an opportunity to build bridges that typically wouldn't be built under normal circumstances. And I think that that's where we are. We need a beacon of light. And if we can use some successes that we've had through sports to be that beacon of light, so be it. But that's kind of the approach that we're taking with it.
When you look at the future moving forward, you're losing a historic class of young men, ones that have been clearly together for a very long time. And what an incredible payoff for all the hard work and dreaming. Now, you gotta kind of rebuild. But I'm guessing the work you've been doing with the juniors, the sophomores, even maybe some talented freshmen, what is your approach or expectation to where do you go from here? Because you've done it. You've done the thing. You've gotten to the mountaintop. And I don't really want to take away from your first 48 hours of just the relief and the celebration and the joy, but I'm guessing at least in a few furtive moments, you've been like, okay, now how am I going to get this going next year? If you hadn't already been thinking about that 3 or 4 months ago.
We was thinking about it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So we do a couple of different things. We got what we call our Big Brother program as soon as this season's over. And in fact, so I'll give you a prime example. So obviously this week we're tying up loose ends from our previous success. We will start back next Monday.
Wow.
We'll start lifting weights at 6:30 in the morning. We'll start our limited contact. We got 2 days a week where we can get our individual development in, and we will release the schedule here at the end of this week, and we'll get going. Fellas, it's obviously, please don't take this the wrong way. Obviously, you set out to win a state championship, but it's just not about winning the state championship. I mean, man, we got freshmen, sophomores, we got 8th graders, we got 7th graders, we got 6th graders that's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they're waiting for their opportunity, right? So we have now put our older guys in a position where they have accomplished their goals and their dreams. We've given them a foundation to be able to move forward, to prepare themselves for their next step of life. These guys are going to be connected for the rest of their life at their 10-year reunion, at their 25-year reunion. They're going to be connected for the rest of their life, no matter the distance between them. So now we have to turn our attention to the next guys in line, and hopefully we're going to give them the same opportunities and provide the same foundation that we did our older group.
Whether they're next year's seniors or the 4th graders who made the trip up to Indianapolis with their parents, how important is it for them to have seen it done?
Oh, I think it's imperative. We was my group in 1993 was very fortunate to get it done, our one and only. So trying to get today's generation of kids to understand back in 93 is impossible.
Right.
Like even our guys, our current players, like they're basketball gurus, right? And it's not, like I don't deem it as disrespectful, but like they really wasn't very familiar with our past and our history. They knew we wanted a state championship, right? But other than that, they really didn't.
They thought it happened around the time of the moon landing, right?
They call me old legs, fellas. That's why, they call me old legs.
We're all old, man. We're all old on this call, Sherron. We're all old.
So yeah, fellas. So to have that, so we live in a C generation.
Yeah.
Like this generation has to see it before they believe it. So we was able to actually pull up a couple of old IU games, showed them, I showed them me playing a little bit, and up a couple of old high school games of our state championship game on YouTube. So they can see, right? It gives us credibility, if you will. So from that aspect of it, it helped us out a tremendous amount.
I got to ask this. Your personal ambition. Do you have ambition beyond coaching Jeffersonville High School? Is the college game a place you've gotten some experience there before. You coached with Pat Knight at Lamar. Is that something in your future? Is it something you think about, dream about, care about at this point?
Deeply. Mm-hmm. So obviously, I think as players, you have dreams, you have goals. As a player, I was very fortunate. There was only one dream as a player that I wasn't able to attain, and that was to play in the NBA. But I did play professionally in Europe. Mm-hmm. as a coach, I had the dream of coaching Jeffersonville and winning the state championship, which is now been accomplished.
Yeah.
And my number one dream as a head coach is to coach at a Division I program and win a national championship. And that all spawns from being recruited by Coach Knight to Indiana University with the intent of winning a national championship, falling short on that goal as a player, but still carrying around the fact that I made that promise. And I want to make sure to the best of my ability that I fulfill that promise.
Do phone calls start coming in after you win a state title with Jeffersonville? Are there opportunities out there? And what is the path, Sherron? I think we're used to the path of you got to be an assistant at a really, young age, and you move up through there, and then you get a shot at a low mid-major, or even worse, or even lower. I shouldn't say worse. You're not that guy. Like you're almost 50. Like all of us on this call. What's the path you think for you in that dream?
Well, it's a great question. This is how I've decided to accept it. If it's meant to be, if it's in my plans, God to make it happen. I mean, I have good folks. I have fought. I have fought. And no matter how hard I fought, it didn't happen until God was ready. So, and I kind of feel like this will be the same. Obviously, I this is part of my spiritual path, having to come back to Jeffersonville. Yeah, I think it's part of my spiritual path, having to be here in the state of Indiana. I mean, man, and I'm not obviously going to try to give any foresight on, what I think is going to happen potentially, but I can tell you what I hope happens. I mean, man, obviously I have an obligation here to my school, my administration, and my community, and my players. And I've told them that pretty much the only way I would leave would be for an opportunity at the college level. Had some guys reach out. Haven't had any guys make offers yet, but I mean, man, obviously you guys know that I'm close to a lot of guys in the business. A lot of guys in the business we have relationships with, and I will probably lean on some of those guys for some guidance. Sure. Will. I mean, man, I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, those guys are there. They're mentors of mine. They're colleagues of mine. There's so many things wrapped up into one. But the one thing I would tell you is that I would say that if I reached out to them, that I would say majority of them would definitely give me the correct mentoring advice that I need to make sure I was all right and had a good chance.
It has to be a relief knowing doing the work every day with your team, exactly where you're at, on yourself, which obviously has been an entire lifetime of a journey, that these opportunities that may come along, they take care of themselves because you're doing the work every day where you're at. You're not sitting there in your office being like, okay, how can I come up with interest in what I have to offer at a Division I level? It's like you're in that office, you're in that gym, you're at that school, you're putting in the work every day. Your head comes up, you've won a state championship, and then those opportunities present themselves rather than you like going door to door knocking and being like, hey, are you interested in me? It's really about doing the work, and then the opportunities come from that, where you can turn to these mentors and see if they're the right opportunities.
That is correct. So I was in a unique situation, guys. I had to gain everybody's trust back. Yeah. That's that was my hurdle. I had to show people that I could keep it together, fellas. I mean, man, and it's rightfully so, right? Like if I've always looked at it, and I even said this recently, like Alan Henderson's son played in the 2A championship game. Really good player. So he and I ran into each other at the banquet. And folks, and even then, obviously, all of my former teammates are very supportive, and man, we've moved on. But fellas, it's difficult for me to look at them. I mean, even after all this time, like that's my teammate, that's my guy, right? Like we went to war together. I mean, man, and to have to accept the fact that you let them down, like like that bond is so special, folks. It's so special, man. It's like I think for me, the only other bond that I know from a perspective, I have children, but I have no biological children of my own, right? But I think the bond for me that comes the closest would be the bond between my family. Like there's no other way to describe it. Like it's such a strong, unique bond. And for me to have to face the people that I violated that bond with, it's difficult.
Well, you've done more than earn everyone's trust back, man. I mean, it's like it's an emotional relationship that IU fans, Hoosier fans have with you. And the outpouring of support, I hope you've seen it online. It is overwhelming. And it's why we want to do a little quick surprise for you. So I need you to do me a favor. I need you to just turn around. And I'll tell you when to come back. Just turn around for a minute. Just stay there. Just stay there. Let me get this going here. Chiron Wilkerson, we had a little surprise for you. Please turn around and see the first surprise.
Stop it.
Ladies and gentlemen, former teammate, friend of Chiron, Big Ten Player of the Year, NBA Pro, Brian Dutch Evans. Dutch, what do you want to say to Chiron?
Oh man, first you look like $1 million, dude. We had a great time at my house the other night. I had all my kids sitting there watching. We purchased all 4 games. We watched them all for the lead up to the grand finale, but it was so much fun watching you on TV, watching you teach these guys, lead these guys to a championship, man. That was so much fun. We're just super proud of you, brother.
Man, I appreciate that, Brian. Man, I really appreciate
that. Brian, you and I have talked over the years, going back to the beginning of our podcast, about how much you loved Chiron as a teammate and were heartbroken when what happened, but you've been rooting for him ever since, and you never lost that love for him. Can you just talk a little bit about what it's like seeing your former teammate and a guy who went through what he went through redeem himself and win a state title?
Well, he didn't need to win a state title for sure. In my book, he didn't need to, but pretty special. I mean, if it's true that nobody's done what he just did, that's the coolest thing. And I heard him say it 2 or 3 times in the telecast. That is really remarkable stuff in the history of the, state Indiana basketball, the storied tradition. I mean, my goodness, if nobody's done what this guy just did, what an amazing accomplishment by a great dude. So he didn't need to validate his career with me for sure. I just think these kids are lucky. He's matured in all the important ways, to lead young guys. And, I'm not surprised that he stayed in the game. He loved the game, played that way, played with an intensity. Like, he was just a great teammate. So, yes, when he left the team, it was a tough situation, and I wish we all had a do-over. It would have been great to keep him. I love playing with him. And, I put up a little bit of a fight. I probably got myself in the doghouse for a period of time. Now, I kind of lived there. Chiron can attest to that. I had a permanent address in there, so it was okay. I didn't mind battling for Chiron because he was that good of a teammate. We needed him. That team really needed him and relied on him in the backcourt an awful lot for leadership. Even as an underclassman, he was that kind of guy. So for sure, I love playing with him and so excited for him. What an awesome thing he's done.
Chiron, what's it like to see the beautiful, handsome Brian Dutch Evans here? And yes, Dutch is his nickname. And I know you guys exchanged some texts afterwards, but here he is in the flesh. Any thoughts as you hear Brian talk about how happy he is for you?
I mean, guys, I'm trying everything in my power not to cry right now. Fellas, these guys was such a big part of my life. I mean, I played against Brian in high school, and obviously, had an admiration for him, but before I even got to IU, and then obviously getting to IU and having the opportunity to to wear the same jersey as him and be his teammate was unbelievable. And not only that, and I tell everybody all the time, he's probably one of the best pure shooters that I've ever played with or against. And obviously, I think everybody knows that. I think that when you get drafted to play with Shaquille O'Neal, I think that it speaks about who you are. I mean, man. So, who am I, fellas, to ever? I mean, I'm so lucky and fortunate to have played with Brian Evans. You have no idea, fellas.
Dutch, any final words for Sherron before we let you get back to? I know you're a busy guy today.
Well, number one, I thank you, Sherron. That's awfully kind. You didn't have to. I don't like that these guys put you on the spot to have to say nice things about me, but I do appreciate it.
True.
This is the closest I've ever been to being on a Jerry Springer episode. So thanks for that, you clowns.
You're welcome.
No, hey man, I wouldn't have missed the opportunity. Like I told you, we were texting Eric and I during the game and just fired up for you, Sherron, and the dude can coach. Let's I don't want to hang up before I say, man, the dude can coach. His team played a disciplined style of basketball. That was really impressive, and I was super impressed with Trey Singleton, and I'll be following his career because he seemed like a great young kid. Sherron said great things about him, so I'll be keeping an eyeball on him. But again, congrats, Sherron. I hope you guys got a few more surprises lined up for the old guy. All right, 20. You guys be good. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank
buddy.
you. The surprises keep flowing. He's still trying to figure out how to turn on the camera, but I think he can hear us. Another former teammate, Pat Graham. Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, you guys got to make things a hell of a lot more simple than this. Good God. You're talking about all these apps and everything. I'm like, look, this is way over me. This is way over my brain supply here.
Well, and look at this. Look who else just popped in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. To congratulate Sherron, we have Pat Graham and Pat Knight. Welcome to the show. Unbelievable. So, Pat, let's see, Pat Knight, can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Pat Graham has been waiting because he's been working on the tech. Pat Graham, what do you want to say to your former teammate, Sherron?
Well, Sherron and I talked and texted last week or two, or stay in touch pretty much the whole season, just because can't stay too in touch because Jeff and Harrison occasionally will have to play in regional, and they've kicked our ass the last 2 years. But no, he did a hell of a job, and I'm not saying this because he's sitting there. And I've talked to a few of the people at Jeff and the parents and stuff, but the thing that Sherron did with that team, X's and O's is one thing, but what type of kids he has. And again, I've had to go through the handshake line on a loss 2 years in a row, but the type of kids he has there speaks volumes for Sherron. And PK and me both got a taste of Sherron when he first got out of high school as a freshman at IU. And let's say he's grown up quite a bit, and for what he's done for those kids, from his experience from then till now, and how he's taught those kids not only basketball, but what type of kid to be and how to act and all that stuff, is tip of the cap. Proudest bunch of him.
And PK, not only a former teammate, but a former colleague. You coached with Sherron. You brought him onto your staff. What do you have to say to Sherron after winning the state title?
Well, first his shirt looks like one of my dad's sweaters. That's the first thing. I just saw that shirt when he came on. But no, I mean, it was nice. I got to see Sherron. They used my gym the other day for practice, the day before the game. But and we talked in, and I mean, I'm just so proud of him. My dad would be proud of him. But this doesn't surprise me because one thing a lot of people don't know, Sherron, I actually got to coach Sherron my first year in the minor leagues. He was the first player I called, and he was my starting guard for the whole year in the International Basketball Association back then in Green Bay. And then of course he was with me down at Lamar, but it doesn't surprise me. It was just a work in progress, but everywhere he's been, he's won, but he develops these kids, cares about these kids. and can make a difference in your life. And it's just like, like PG said, we've all grown up since college. But the good thing, even though we had our fun, there's nothing these kids can do. I mean, we've done it all times 10. And, thank God they didn't have phones back then. But the good thing is the mistakes we've all made and the good times we've had, we can relate to these kids and we can help them when they've done something or help them before they do something that can cause them harm. And I think just Sherron's got the whole package, not just from a basketball standpoint, but also being able to help these kids off the court. And so I was jacked. And we had it on. My wife and I were just laying in bed and she was following it on the live stats. And I mean, the score was wild. I mean, Fisher up 2. Jeffersonville up 1. Fisher up, it was nuts. Then they go into overtime. But no, I couldn't have been more pleased. And there's nobody more deserving than Sherron.
Both PG and PK, what you guys don't know is we talked to Sherron for the last hour or so, and we asked him, like, who has reached out, who's been most meaningful. PG, he brought up your name. PK, he brought up you and the conversation he told you about where he felt like in semi-state that it was your dad reaching out to him during a moment where he needed some guidance. And you guys obviously mean the world to Sherron. Sherron, any reaction to both PG and PK there?
I mean, man, both of those guys know how I feel. It's man, without getting too sappy, I mean, both of those guys are 2 of my guardian angels. I mean, the fact that they were 2 of the first people that I gravitated to when I arrived on campus as a freshman. And I'm not for sure if it was I don't know what it was, but it was I don't know. I just gravitated to them. Obviously, being a Southern Indiana,
we're all fucked up. That's why he graduated. Let's be honest, man. That's why we all had a good time, man. Get too serious with us.
You gotta love Sherron's trying to.
Hey guys, that's what you see, guys. That's what I got right there, right? That's what. I mean, Pat from Southern Indiana, PJ, Southern Indiana guy, obviously Hoosier Hill Conference guy, and then obviously PK is. I mean, man, I've said it before, and I'll say it, he knows. I mean, man, he's been extremely important. I mean, man, in my restoration as a player and a coach. I mean, man, so I just I've often said, fellas, that I will be in debt to these guys for the rest of my life, and I'm not for sure that I'll ever be able to repay them.
I'll tell a funny story. I don't know how much time we have and everything, but I'm going to tell a funny story on Sherron. But I remember it was like the first couple of days on campus, open gym, and Sherron and Steve Hart came in together, and I don't know how I got pulled into this, but first 2 open gym. I mean, there was not fisticuffs, but there would be disagreements and elbows, and you get into it a little bit on the court, and that's the way it was back then. But Sherron and Steve Hart had got into it. I mean, when I say get into it, they're trying to throw punches and stuff, which this isn't quite what open gym's about. We're trying to teach the younger guys what motion is because no one knows what it is. We had to go through it when we were freshmen. So it's I'm like, what the hell with these 2 loose cannons? I mean, it was ridiculous. So I get called in. One of Coach's secretaries had called me and said, Coach wants to see you tomorrow morning, or maybe it was in an hour, whatever. It was, I need to speak to you right now. And I had to go straight in. And I go into the coach's office, and Coach Knight walks in and goes, if Wilkerson messes up today, you're off the team. And I'm like, do what? And I mean, now I'm a 5th-year senior, so I'm pretty callous to everything now. I get the mind games there, but I was like, wait, what? Why do I get Sherron? He goes, you're from down there in Southern Indiana, bleepity bleep bleep. I said, he's from Jeff. I'm from Floyd Central, 2 different worlds. I don't even like Jeff. And honest to God, he goes, basically, I don't give a bleep what you want. You've got him, and if he messes up again, you're off the team. So long story short, Sherron and I had a quick conversation in the locker room going out to open gym at 3:00 that day. And Sherron's told me later, he said, I've probably not had too many people in my life, or I hadn't had anyone in my life that spoke to me like you did. And honest to God, this is no joke. Within 24 hours, Sherron went from this type of teammate to this type. I mean, it was a 180 flip. And from that point on, Sherron and I understood each other, and he was my guy. But that's how weird it was. But Coach Knight, I almost got kicked off the team because he was going to screw up again in practice with Steve Hart. I'm like, these two jackasses. I mean, come on. I've 2 years of no basketball with a broken foot. I'm finally healthy, and I got to deal with him. Yeah, it was – thanks, Coach.
Yeah, the fight, though, was impressive. It was like 2 middleweights. It was like Hagler and Hearns, man. I mean, it wasn't like if Pat and I got in a fight, we're just going to tackle somebody, use our strength. These guys were juking and jiving. They're fainting. I mean, they're weaving, throwing jabs. I was like, oh, because I wasn't a senior, so I didn't get threatened by Coach, but I actually enjoyed it. I was like, these two guys they can fight. Holy shit. That was my thought. I was like, I'm not messing with that. I was like, holy shit. I couldn't even catch them to try to tackle them. And honest to God, they're throwing jabs and they're weaving and bobbing. That was my take on that. That was impressive.
Hey, Pat, I love it. PK, obviously we've spent time talking to Sherron about how it ended in Indiana, but that didn't end the relationship with you, obviously. You talked about, like, he became the first player you coached. You brought him with you to coach at Lamar. What was it about Sherron that didn't make you just kind of put up your hands and go, okay, well, Coach kicked him off the team. That had to end. I'm done with him too. What was it about Sherron that makes it so that you're on this call with him, 30 years later?
Like I said, he just fit in with us. I mean, our whole team was, solid group of guys, got along, especially guys like, Pat, PG and I were like, we were thicker than thieves, and so he just fit in with us, man, right off the bat. And what people don't realize, I don't get into what happened with Sherron off the court, but there's some BS to it, some things, but it was just at that moment and the climate, Coach didn't have a choice, and it killed him. It killed him because, honest to God, from not just a talent standpoint, basketball standpoint, but personality standpoint, Sherron was a prototypical Bob Knight player, and which most of us were because we wouldn't be able to last, but just his personality, the way he loved basketball, the way he worked, he just fit right in, and that's why Pat and I took to him right away, and that's why. And I knew no one knows my dad better than I do, and I just let people know. It killed him to do it, and he always kept track of what Chiron was doing, where he was, and then when I called him, my dad would be like, "Hey, the first guy when I got the head job in that minor league, first guy I'm gonna call is Chiron," and he thought it was the smartest thing, and he'd call me, "Hey, how's he doing? How's he playing for it?" And he was one of our best players, was able to, had a great year in the minor leagues, able to go overseas and play. But then when I hired him at Lamar, again, my dad thought it's just the perfect hire. And no one knows that, but Coach really kept an eye on him after he left IU because it really hurt him to have to let him go. But he just fit in, man. And
awesome.
It's just like with PG and I, we got to know each other those our senior years, AAU and stuff. And then and that's one of the reasons I went to Indiana. I go to prep school for a year. I know I'm not good enough to go to Indiana. I should have gone to a mid-major or low-major school, but I got guys like PG there. Like I came back for like Thanksgiving break from prep school. And, those guys, you got to come here, man. If you don't get to play, you got to come here. We just were so close. And I wouldn't change that for anything, not just but with PG or any of those guys, we had the best time. And it's just like we could not speak for 20 years and we see each other like it was yesterday. That's how close we all were. And Chiron just didn't miss a beat and fit right in there as a teammate and a friend.
Sherron, what does it mean for you to hear Pat talk about the way Coach felt about you?
It makes it hard, man. Pat and I, we've had some intimate conversations about it, and man, I'm not for sure that I'm not for sure people really understand the position that I put Coach in the program and my teammates as well. And man, and to this day, I've said it and I'll say it here on this podcast. The decision that Coach made saved my life. Man, so I mean, I needed to, man, I needed to go through some things to figure some things out. And I was supposed to go there. I was supposed to go through that. I mean, that was supposed to happen to me. And, you know, I think fortunate for me, I was given the opportunity to be able to gain those guys' trust back again. And I can tell you, man, that I won't be letting you down this time, fellas. Yeah.
Gentlemen, I think we would get in big trouble with the listening audience and Hoosiers everywhere if we didn't ask for your take on the new head coach of Indiana University. He was right there, the sideline. Sherron, I don't know if you got a chance to say hello to Coach DeVries, you know, and PK. I don't know if you guys have crossed paths with him along the way, but just as Hoosiers, as fans like the rest of us, what's your take on the new coach and the new era? State champion Chiron Wilkerson. Let's start with you.
So first, I did see Coach DeVries at the game. I did not have an opportunity to speak to him. Obviously, it was pretty crazy, but I did see that he was in attendance, which is obviously I think is fantastic. Any high school event that goes on in the state of Indiana, the IU coach needs to be there, in my humble opinion. So he was there.
You think?
And then need to be there.
Sorry.
Front row. Yeah, you need to be there. And then the other piece I think is important. I think Mr. Belson and our administration, I think they did their due diligence, and I think that they got to what they consider to be the right guy for the job. And I think that it's incumbent upon the IU family members to support Coach DeVries and support the way that he wants the program to move. And if we can do that, I think we'll be all right.
PK?
You know, I don't know him personally, and I'm supposed to be able to. I've talked to people, you know, meet him here in the next month. But you know, when I was doing the scouting for the Pacers, you know, his son's a hell of a player. So hopefully he comes. You know, he was on our list, and we always do our due diligence, not just on the players when we scout, but the coaching situation. So it happened to be his dad. I've heard nothing but good things. Just not from obviously the X's and O's, but personality, everything. No ego, none of that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to it. You know, for me though, personally, because we play Indiana in an exhibition game, as long as he doesn't screw me over on that, I'm good, man. Because that's a good thing for my school. And so if he doesn't do that to me, we're good. But no, I think, like Sherron said, IU did their due diligence. I mean, it obviously worked out for football. And I think it's going to work out here. But again, you know, we do have the best fans in the country, but that also comes along with, you know, you got to be patient and, you know, let a guy do his thing. And so I hope they just have patience and you know, just, you know, if you lose one game or two games, don't, you know, go bonkers on the guy and get toxic. I think Matt Painter did a good job when he summed up the culture that's going on right now, just around basketball. When they asked him about the next IU coach in his press conference, but I've heard nothing but good things, and I'd love to help him in any way with, you know, just relationships or anything like that. But I'm looking forward to it, and it'll be interesting. You know, I feel bad for the guy with the transfer portal. It's going to be a brand new team, but stuff I've heard from just people I know, I think the fans shouldn't worry. I think they're going to be pretty surprised with the team they put together.
Awesome. PG?
All I ask and want is to be able to watch Indiana play. And I want a team that plays hard and bite, claw, pinch, cheat. I don't care how you have to do it. Elbows, knees, whatever you got to do. You know, I hate to bring the old Bob Knight thing in, but you play for the name on the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey. I get the money. I get the NIL. I get the portal. It's changed. But, you know, for me to watch a team at Indiana that doesn't play hard or maybe doesn't care or, you know, you can go through the list of what I've had to watch the last 2 years. And I've told people I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy watching the team. I didn't think at 7 o'clock I got to have my TV on. But I enjoyed watching Auburn, and I enjoyed watching Kentucky, and I enjoyed watching Louisville, and I really enjoyed watching Purdue, and I enjoyed watching Clemson. Well, those teams are getting NIL and portal guys. Why the hell are they playing hard? So, yeah, I got a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth for the last couple of years, and he's one of ours which kind of hurt me a little bit more. I didn't like what was going on the last 2 years, and so it's not going to take a whole hell of a lot to impress me, but I'm really hoping that this guy's the right guy. And it's not like there's just one person out there at Indiana or Georgetown or Iowa or wherever the case may be. There's many guys that can do it, and I just hope we get one of those guys that can do it.
All right. Well, PK and PG, can't thank you enough for jumping on to our little ambush surprise of Sherron here. But like I said, he mentioned you guys, and Evans was on right before you guys, and he had to bail. But he mentioned you three guys as guys that were the most meaningful to him as far as reaching out and talking to. So really appreciate PG and PK, you guys jumping on last minute for this.
Not a problem.
Anytime. And I love PG, love Sherron, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
See you guys.
Love you guys, fellas. Yeah, I love you guys. Hey, man, I got so many guys, man. I talked to Jamal Meeks. I talked to Alan Henderson. I talked to AJ Moye. It's crazy, fellas, because I talked to IU former players from all different generations. Bobby Wilkerson, I talked to him.
Wow.
I love them all, fellas, and it's like, I mean, man, just to have the opportunity to be in the conversations with those guys, it's such a humbling honor, fellas. I mean, man, you're talking about some Jesus, fellas, just unbelievable guys.
Well, Sherron, it happened because of the position you put yourself in. You earned it. You did it against a lot of odds over the last few decades. You know, our podcast, when people ask us all the time, what's your favorite episode? What's the favorite episode you did? And the one that we did with you, the first one we did with you, it always is at the top because you opened up to us, you trusted us, and were vulnerable enough to talk to us about some of the hardships and the pain that you felt. You did it again today. And dude, we fell in love with you then. Hoosier Nation that listened to this fell in love with you then. And I'm telling you, the support that you have from Hoosiers, from the region all the way down to Southeast, across the state, up to Fort Wayne, it doesn't matter. They're pulling for you. We were rooting like hell for you to beat the Fishers guys. And just so happy for you, man. Just absolutely ecstatic for you. You're a Hoosier. You always will be. You've earned it the hard way. And just love you, man, and really appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Thank you guys, man. You guys, I love you guys the most, man. Yeah.
Sherron, I just want to say, hopefully he usually does. If Angelo Pizzo is listening, there's obviously an incredible modern day Hoosier story to be told here. You know, how could you ever top what happened with Milan in the 50s? And maybe from the David and Goliath, we have a comp here, but I think from a personal redemption, from just a human story about one man who really sort of started his life at the top, got thrown down to the bottom, and had to climb all the way back up. It is an incredible, incredible story. And to have watched it from afar, and for you to take some time with us over the years, both on the phone or over Zoom or at the Bluebird, you know, the moments we've got to spend with you, they've had a huge impact on us. It's a really big inspiration. Your whole story is. So thank you for sharing it and for getting us all in a place where, you know, maybe if we're not so sure we can do something. You are just this bright, shining light for all of not just IU, but the state of Indiana. Like, you know how much basketball means to the whole state of Indiana and at the high school level more than anywhere else on earth. And that you are both that to us and an Indiana Hoosier, the cream and crimson. You're the complete package of somebody who really shines a light for all of us to follow. So thank you for that.
Man, you guys are awesome, man. Thank you so much, fellas. Really, thank you, man.
Be good.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your day, fellas.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys, man.
That was a guest. That was a guest.
Look, I get emotional talking about Chiron. I do. My freshman year at Indiana, Sherron was the guy. I was reading about him in Inside Indiana before I got to Indiana, and he was going to be our guy. And I held a ton of resentment against Chiron Wilkerson for what happened, and blamed him for the lack of success that the Indiana program had in my time at Indiana, because I thought he was going to be the guy to lead us, and held that resentment from 1995, 96 till 2019. Yeah, 19 when we did the interview.
I think so.
Yeah, so 23 years. And then it all went away when we got to talk to him the first time. And then it went away even more when we got to meet him at the event that we did at the Bluebird. And he came on, and I, he's been part of our show in various ways since. We've stayed in touch with him. His story of redemption is, I was going to jump in, but you said it so beautifully. It's even bigger than the state of Indiana. It's just a human story of redemption.
Yeah.
And a guy that went through hell, that he owns, that he put himself in that hell, and has come back on the other side in such a beautiful way, and he cares about these kids. And when I asked Pat Knight and Pat Graham and Brian Evans this morning if they would come on and do it, immediately they responded, yes, I'm in, I'd love to do it. Like, no hesitation. That's what Sherron Wilkerson means to these guys, and I'm really grateful to those three guys for coming on, and obviously to Sherron for letting us be part of this moment of celebration that he's in right now.
You can still see he's really hard on himself when he thinks about letting down his teammates. And maybe that's what has and will continue to drive him to excellence as a mentor, as a coach, as a human being. But for him, I hope that he can truly forgive himself, because it's so obvious that his former teammates, who I think he feels that guilt, do not hold that against him, and they understand what he had to go through there to get to where he is now. But either way, what a warmth that radiates from that man, and along with the notion of them all being fucked up, which I truly relate to and appreciate and think is hilarious. There is just a warmth and a love amongst those guys that goes so far beyond the basketball court. It's a beautiful thing to see, and it is truly moving.
Can you imagine what it means to Sherron to listen to Pat Knight say that this is what my dad thought about him, that he kept tabs on him, that it killed him to have to do what he did, and for Sherron to say that doing what he did saved his life? Like, there's just, it's an unbelievable human story, and, God bless him, and man alive, I'm so happy that they won the state title.
They won the 4A state title against a team on a 43-game winning streak. It's unbelievable. And for us to have just been charting the journey, for the last 6 years closely, really, really, really cool to open Peegs.com and to see Sherron biting on the gold medal of the state championship. What a journey. It's beautiful to see an Indiana Hoosier cutting down the nets.
As always, follow us on Twitter or X at Hoosier Hysterics for the hysterics. No E.
No I.
But there's sometimes Y.
We really should get Sherron to do it. He's got the best voice.
I thought that's what you were going to do when you asked him something else after we were done recording. Next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysterics.